Welcome to Owen and Prince Stream D&D, episode 17. Some would say the most important number of episodes. You know, your show is really good if it's got to 17 episodes. And this time we are going to discuss UK1 Beyond the Crystal Cave by Dave J. Browne, Tom Kirby and Graeme Morris, who were part of the TSR UK crew. And this wasn't the first UK module. The first UK module or set of modules was the U series, U1 to 3. But this was, I guess, really an extension of the U modules, wasn't it? This Beyond the Crystal Cave is levels 4 to 7, and it has a particular reputation for being quirky and a bit kind of round the side, a bit at right angles to other modules. Very much emphasizing exploration and puzzle solving over combat. So that's what we're talking about.
I wouldn't necessarily say hello, by the way, Owen.
Hello.
Nice to be here
Yeah.
again. Thank you for introducing me. I am doing fine. No, yes, I'm not sure if it's quirky, but definitely like a fairy tale atmosphere. It's definitely something else. We're very excited to go through it today. Point of order, I guess, that I haven't fully read the module. I got about halfway to 3/4 through, up until the last section. And you yourself, Owen, you have read it. Have you also run it at some point?
I haven't run it. I reviewed it on the channel. As I said to you, I reviewed it 4 years ago or something, 3 years ago. I've read it a couple of times. I assume you've read it before anyway. I think we've talked about it before. So you probably I'd assume I assume that you've had some kind of look at all of it at some point.
Through cultural osmosis, for sure.
Cultural osmosis.
Nevertheless,
so,
many interesting.
Prince will be mostly offering good insights on the first 3/4, and then he'll be making abusive comments and
I'll be making up the last part. What it
is,
I imagine it to be.
I assume that this
See
is
if
what's happening.
Anybody will notice.
Prince's bitter tirade at the start was because he has been ill. It's so hence his under preparation. He's he's, as you can kind of hear, he's recovering from a fatal flu.
That's right.
He's gotten better.
Yeah, the government has cut off my heroin. That's right.
Yeah.
My allotment.
This is the DTs.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
Take us. Let's take us into this magical world.
Yeah.
I guess we have not.
I think it's worth prefacing before we go in, just to talk a bit about TSR UK, Theme Folio, the U series, the
White
UK
Dwarf,
series as a whole. White Dwarf, which has there's several decent AD&D adventures from it, but 2 very famous ones, both by Albie Fiore, who never published anything else, basically. He was like a White Dwarf staffer who wrote 2 classic adventures, and it's somewhat mysterious. Lichway and the Halls of
Thane. That's right.
Yeah.
And Graeme Morris would end up working on, I believe, Warhammer Fantasy later on.
Yeah, right? So would some of the other UK module guys. Some of the guys in the same would or they'd be editing Warhammer Fantasy or whatever else. It's a funny thing. It's a virtuous cycle there. Starting at the end, really, is that you end up having Carl Sargent, who I think ends up being a very respectable AD&D designer. And BX designer, actually. You know him via BX as well, of course, because you've run B11 and 12. But he comes via the Games Workshop role-playing design studio, and it's fun reading them talk. I think it might be Graeme Morris talking about how you dealt with Carl Sargent and like what his strengths and weaknesses as a designer were, because he helped write some of the famous 5-part the Shadows over Bogenhafen and Enemy in the Shadows, whatever it is, that whole series. He wrote some of that, and it both has what Graeme Morris was like. This is both the stuff that Carl was good at and the stuff he wasn't good at. It was how Games Workshop, I think, as far as I can tell, really started to make money. Was they were publishing D&D in Britain, like they were distributing it for TSR, and White Dwarf carried a lot of stuff on D&D, as well as other role-playing games. And they started eventually, TSR UK, I think, kind of was some of the same guys, really, who ended up being TSR UK. and they started publishing modules. I don't know all the exact timeline, but that's roughly it. Is this whole nexus of kind of British gaming people who we'd associate also with Games Workshop end up running TSR UK. They end up publishing the U modules and the UK modules and the Fiend Folio. The Fiend Folio is articles from White Dwarf.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
Monsters from White Dwarf.
The Feed Factory, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And they actually left out the the lamest monsters. That's true. So if you really want to scrape the bottom of the barrel, then the Feed Factory is there for you.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think it's not quite the same because it's better quality, but there's a similar thing for the Dragon magazine creature catalogs. There's also the individual entries, but the creature catalogs, weirdly, virtually none of that was ever collected, even in the Monstrous Compendium annuals, which were typically where you collected that stuff. The creature catalogs were from late first and early second, were just never collected. And there's a bunch of really good monsters in there. But yeah, obviously maybe that was to do with the changeover of edition and editing and whatever else. But yeah, anyway, the thing about I was going to say about the UK TSR UK modules like U and UK, one thing people would associate with them is a slightly different sensibility, a slightly different style at points. I use the word quirky. You don't have to, but certainly there's sometimes a slightly different approach to how you're meant to solve stuff. And I recently reviewed U2 on the channel, which has as its core dungeon a really quite decent dungeon of some lizard men, which really you don't need to fight it. You don't need to fight the lizards at all. You can just negotiate with them. It's one where actually you're almost being encouraged to try to find a lateral solution rather than just fight. So yeah, I think that's and we're going to see more of that. In this
but
module.
Also the vibe is very different in the UK adventure.
What would you say? How would you say it's different? As and yes, I agree, but
I think maybe it's a little bit more high fantasy and fairy tale as opposed to I guess sword and sorcery and I don't know, historical sort of faux medievalism or whatever it is. It's definitely less Gygaxian in its in its ethos and its aesthetics.
Yeah, and I think you can compare that to some of the other modules published by the same people, and U1 and U2 are good ones. U1, there's a haunted house, but actually there's pirates underneath, and it's like a British reference here. It's very much like a Famous Five adventure. It seems very directly inspired by sort of kind of a certain kind of British mystery fiction, adventure fiction, and the same when you look at UK1. As you say, you said fairy tale. It's something where it's inspired by Midsummer's Night Dream. It's inspired by the kind of fair ideas of fairy rings. It has leprechauns in it. It's very much a fairy tale rather than here's a weird magical cave. It's not like B1. Here's a weird set of magical caves with weird stuff in them. I wonder what will happen if we press it. It's more like there's a whole vibe to it. So yeah, we'll start from there. I think that's a good introduction to TSR UK. And just that it is a bit different, and that's part of why I think this was interesting for us. As your suggestion, of course, to do a UK one. I think in a couple of months' time, we are talking about doing Gary Gygax's Necropolis. So
yes, for contrast, but it might take us a while.
It'll be a strong contrast. Yeah, I was going to say. I think the conclusion was we weren't going to read it in a couple of days of prep.
Well, no, because I feel that there you would also need to check out. Obviously, I don't want a conversion. I want the full adventure, and then you got to check out Dangerous Journeys and sort of grok how that works.
I was going to say Trent Smith does have a conversion of that doesn't he? I think it's Trent.
Not the entire thing, just the last, just the last part. Yeah, so that will be a little bit tricky.
We have Random and Jeff in the chat there. So yes, there is the island of, this is technically in Greyhawk, the island of Cyberate in Jetclear Bay in the Azure Sea, and
it's in Greyhawk, but it's on an island, so it's
that's
fine.
right.
You can put anything on.
It is about 1 mile off the south coast of Fairwind Isle. The Commodore of Fairwind rules the island through his governor, and there's some other characters we hear about.
I was going to make
none of these people matter. But to be clear, this is.
I was going to make an observation here. Actually, let me. It's coming. Okay. if you read the description here, he talks about a couple of NPCs and he gives like some levels and sort of the bare minimum of like there's 50 men at arms basically keeping order. But this is I feel this is this adventure is a step away from the more, I guess, open-ended, sandbox-friendly sort of, open-ended adventure style of Gygax, and more, well, it's more a step towards the kind of like linear, more plot-driven adventures that we would see in later.
Well, I guess maybe particularly what it is that it's a very enclosed scenario. So the fact there's this very bare bones introduction to an area is, in a way, it makes it, yeah, and that's because the scenario itself doesn't happen here, and you could make it up yourself. It doesn't matter as long as you know they're lawful good and no one from the island will go in the cave. That's the two things that matter. Then that's make up the rest as much as you like.
And they also get a little bit heavy-handed, right? Because they the nobleman, he promises you 10,000 GP if you get out these two. So the plot of the adventure, right, is that there's these two lovers, right?
Yep.
That have fled into the cavern.
Yep.
Is it clear, by the way? Are they fleeing from anyone on the island? Is this made clear? Or?
They're feuding. His family. This is so I said Midsummer Night's Dream, but also Romeo and Juliet. These two noble families are feuding, and so because they fall in love, they flee into a fairyland.
That's right. They flee into the garden where, and this garden was already the last refuge of I believe an what is it, an elf-ess and a wizard.
It was associated with two lovers already, and it was invented by a wizard, Porphyrio, who
he was one of the
made
lovers.
This wonderful garden.
That's right.
I was going to say it was who are the original lovers called?
Porphyrio and Porphyrio and Jane.
Yeah, Jane, Bob.
Yes. Yeah. No, but right, and you can kind of tell the heavy-handed nature of it, where what is it? You're offered 10,000 GP to get him back from the lawful good man, and he's already equipped with an amulet of ESP to if you trash the garden, you won't get any rewards. I think does he actually warn you to be a nice boy before he sends you out?
He says it's held sacred, so. He says he'll refuse to reward party of ransacked it because it's held in such awe by the locals.
Exactly.
And so and he has a medallion of ESP to check you. There is a thing I will just give the whole introduction. Actually, just fix the next page. Here you have like a list of rumors, and it says the players will quickly pick up all these rumors. In which case, you might as well just give the players all that information as this is the information people have heard. There is an odd thing where you can tell there's the residuum of an old sandboxy assumption about adventures.
Game, yes.
Yeah. But the particular scenario doesn't need that. To be clear, I'm not criticizing the actual rumors. I'm not criticizing the scenario there. I'm saying the way it sets it up is incredibly tight and narrow. But it has this leftovers of, yes, you might need to put the... And of course, what you should actually do is just take some of these rumors.
Wait, one moment. It's so for the listeners. So the idea is that instead of just giving you the rumors, they give you 4 rumors, and then it's, well, if you ask whatever the wizard on the island and the cleric living elsewhere, they'll give you additional. Yes, and then if you pester the town people enough,
they might know the others.
Right, but there's no cost associated with these actions. No. So it's just that the DM, you have to be. You have to ask again more and more.
So there's as it stands, it's a waste of time. And now you can easily imagine adding to that if you wanted to, and making it more interesting, and having a bunch of stuff happen elsewhere. But the island itself is peaceful, and there's not much trouble there. So there's not loads of interest on the island. I think it makes the point, for instance, that there are no brigands and stuff like that. The population is civilized, industrious, and friendly, but hot-blooded and quick-tempered. There are no outlaws or brigands on the island, and all other monsters have been controlled. Now, of course, you could quickly spin this into a Romeo and Juliet thing, like more openly and explicitly, and have like street fights and stuff in the kind of city. You can make it more interesting, but that's not the scenario we get. We just get this very odd thing where it says, "Here's 12 rumors. The players are essentially going to get all of them, but you should pretend they're not going to."
And most of them are fake. Oh yes, the lovers
No,
Juliana and
it's
Orlando.
about 50.
Yeah,
It's about 50-50. False, false, true,
4 to
true,
12.
false, 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 true, false, true, false, true. Yeah,
Yes, well, a third,
mostly false. Yeah,
mostly false.
yeah, yeah. And it's a sacred place because they have these old legends about it. That's the point.
That's all right. I don't mind if you sort of give a semi plausible excuse why the townsfolk haven't entered the place. If it's not constantly threatening them, but it is an sort of superstitious fear for it, then like okay, some guys from the outside are drafted to take care
And yeah,
of it.
the governor knows they've got to do something about it because these people have gone missing, including his daughter. Yeah, Random says, wonder how many of these rumors are actually useful, like for good to know for purposes of spell use and lighting. So yeah, it is that there's a separate thing there, which is that mostly you want your rumors for this kind of thing to be true, not false, but also you need them to be usable. So, and that number 4 is really useful to know. Jeff says Orlando. I mean that it's from Shakespeare again. Orlando and Juliana are pretty obviously Shakespeare names taken in, rather than Orlando Bloom names taken in. Juliana Margulies from ER.
Right.
But yeah,
2 Spaniards have fled into their cave, and the locals are so incensed that they're like, "You have to get them out of here. They're defiling this beautiful garden."
Yeah, go and kill them. That's what they say. That's what they say.
Kill them immediately. Yeah, no. Certainly not. Certainly.
So the next couple of pages are essentially, I'm going to skip over this page, but there's something really important we'll kind of need to talk about. But just because we have the full gimping list on the next page. And essentially, it's not actually insanely gimped. It is just really fiddly or noodly, depending on which of those terms is appropriate here. Like there's loads of potential slight changes to stuff, or you need to pay attention to spells in a whole bunch of categories. And it's not banning you from using most stuff, but it is just saying this is going to be a bit different. Or this won't work properly.
Okay, hold on a minute. It's it is banning a lot of stuff.
But stuff that's in particular categories. It's not broad. It's like you can't get animals and you can't set stuff on fire. Is virtually all that stuff.
And you can't fly. That's right.
Yeah. And you can't fly over the cave anyway. You've been told that, but you also can't fly in the cave.
Sure. Yeah. What do we think about this? About this whole like, it almost seems like excessive to cover so many different spells, almost like it's a different plane. Like certain effects are really interesting. Like so the idea is that within the garden, time passes at like at 700 times slower than on the outside. So that actually also means that
this is in a way almost the biggest thing. I actually think the spell gimping list is kind of, because a lot of it is to do with the same categories of spells. It's a lot, but it's less important because you just need to learn that. The biggest thing that the players will not know is that for each day they spend in the cave, 2 years pass outside the cave.
Yeah,
which is very intense. So fire and flight is fine, but bugging on utility spells is horrendous. I mean, in terms of
sorry, I don't know this. Is this a Britishism? Embuggering? Is this
yes?
A British verb, British only verb that you islanders use to communicate amongst yourselves?
So there's not loads. I would say there's not lots of standard utility that is. An odd one is Entangle, actually, because Entangle doesn't really match. I guess Entangle is like Animal Summoning, that it's you manipulating the life force, something like that.
No,
but yeah,
they don't want you to
insect plague.
Yeah, they don't want you to summon any animals, and they don't want to give you control over either, I guess, plants nor animals. But then they all druids within the grove get a level. So are they just fucking cock teasing you?
Yeah, but animal friendship can be used. So
That's true.
It's to do with summoning and controlling. Insect plague is similar. And I guess stuff like it doesn't say you don't have a link to the astral. So I mean, you can demon summon as much as you like.
Okay, well, that's gonna be nice.
Yeah, it's gonna.
But it is
Lynch
quite a bit
says,
of a gimping list to.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
for
more
banning
that
fire.
it's that it's not that it's incredibly broadly negative. It's that it's really it's deep rather than broad. It's like, oh, by the way, you just need to know all these exceptions, and which I think is something which DMs make mistakes. I actually think the big thing I thought about looking at this was not that's really hard on the players. I don't think it's going to be too bad. I think it's more that you're going to forget stuff because or you have to constantly look at the list whenever a player says, "Can I do this?" and you're like, "Nope."
It's just animal-related stuff you got to check. Fire doesn't work, and there was one more. Sorry, please don't tell me.
Charm,
Yes, mind
hypnotism,
control
and
stuff.
mass charm,
That's it.
and charm monster, charm person, things like that. Charm plants.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I'd say it's it just a very slight sort of.
And flight and mobility related powers. Yeah.
So, and the same with things that are changed, as you say, they druids. Everything else are one level stronger. But the biggest thing, as I say, is that you're going to be spending. The players could easily spend a couple of days in there. I think that's not an unreasonable amount of time to spend in the garden, and that means it's going to be 4 years. And if you're running a campaign, like you've really got to think about that. Are you happy with that?
But
now,
that's an opportunity. That's not a drawback.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, it's an opportunity, but it's an opportunity you actually have to know you want to use. For instance, you can't have it in a game where there's stables of characters running at the same time.
Oh, so are you saying that? What if we use it on Owen? What if we're using one-on-one time?
Yeah.
People are
have
using
to wait 4
one-on-one
years.
time. Yes, that's right. You can only play.
I'm more talking about stables, as I'm saying that essentially you do the adventure. You have 2 days of adventure, and then essentially because you're not doing one time, and you go to your other stables who are back in time. And it's going to take actual years of real life gameplay, probably more than 4 years to catch up.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's something where I think in lots of campaigns, you're just going to change that to something like 1 day to 1 month or something, On the other hand, if you're running a single party campaign, you can use that for a nice thing where they leave and you just need to have prepared what the world will be like when they get back.
Yeah, this is really cool. The
idea that in that case, it's an opportunity. It's just that in lots of games, it's not going to be, an opportunity. It's going to be an annoyance.
Rent from your tenant farmers and an accelerate. See, if you would use this in Axe, case in point, observe what happens. You have a beautiful, fantastic premise, and you introduce it in Axe, and immediately it just gets like this numinous, fantastical, magical purpose. It just gets corrupted for some worldly, vulgar, end where it's used to to ripen cheese at an accelerated rate, or
my cheese production empire is really going to benefit from this.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a relevant thing is you can't use it to age items or things though. So you can't take fine wine in and then take it out and it's just 4 years older after 2 days, because it's not unnatural aging essentially. Like, as in, there's nothing like it's something you'd actually have to stay there with it or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
it's not.
Time
it's
within
not
the bubble goes slower. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Time passes within the bubble passes extremely slowly. So if you would return after 2 days, then just your barrels of wine will just have gotten there. That's right.
Yeah. So.
I guess you could use it as a sort of impromptu fridge, though. You could keep food in there.
I guess for 2 years, for like 4 years, you put something in there and then
it's like,
4 years later,
I've already taken a bite, but I don't want to.
Hasn't gone off. Yeah,
exactly. I don't want to eat the rest right now. I'll keep it in the garden.
Yeah, I was going to say Lynch, by the way, is exactly pointing out the opportunity. Yeah. Oh, castles have been built, but there's been a coup, so you have to do in a single party game, I think you've got a really fun thing you can do here.
And
Absolutely,
it's
I agree.
at the appropriate level range for that as well, right? Because it's 4 to 7, so players have
You're
had time
starting to
sort
set down routes. Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
Well, let's go forward.
If
So
I'm
basically, there are three
scraping my throat, by
sections.
the way, that's just because
Yeah,
I'm still slowly dying of this
yeah.
horrific disease
Yeah,
for which there is no cure.
he ate a corrupted sample from a Chinese lab.
From I had a corrupted sample from a Dutch snack bar, but that's every sample. Okay, all right. So what else do we have, Owen?
So there are three main sections, and I guess we'll go forward to this next. I think there's the cave of Echo.
One thing. Why do we think there's no fire, or there's no fire? So people don't burn down.
Okay. So no, I think that's a fair point. The anti-gimping rules are the anti-spell gimps.
Yes.
Are to stop you solving the problem in some completely crazy way that bypasses the point of it. And you can criticize that, I should say. But then again, we can't. I think this one, there is at least a coherent in-world explanation, which is Porphyrio is very powerful and made it so.
The coherent explanation is that a wizard cast magic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh no, but at least it makes sense when you're there. You're not like, why is this?
To keep his garden. Yeah, that's okay.
So you can't set it on fire because that destroy it. You can't. Right. You can't get animals or control them because all the animals are magically bound to the. And this will come up.
Yeah.
The issue of how animals act is actually part of the rules of the garden. So that makes sense. And the flying, I guess it's tough because I think you have to solve the maze to find the Palace of Spires anyway.
Correct.
But
the flying is to prevent you from just.
Yeah, just seeing where you need to go. Basically,
there we go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is because this is a mini wilderness. It's something where occasionally, I think I've talked about this too with this and I1. Both this and I1 have this interesting thing where the designer has made, and if you believe some people about I1, it was designed by maybe a vagrant who was murdered by Zeb Cook. But I think it's probably designed by Zeb Cook.
I do remember I1. Wait, let me check.
I1's great.
I1.
Yeah, but so the parallel I'm drawing is that both of them have these fairly enclosed wilderness environments, which are only like a couple of miles across. They are dungeons, but with the shape of a wilderness and with the interactions of wilderness because they're more open. They're not walled. They're not passaged. And I think that is an interesting subtype because it blends things about how you interact with the wilderness, but on the time scale of the dungeon.
It makes sense too if you're making something a module that's modular, then something like that makes sense that you would have a sort of self-contained little baby wilderness, for sure.
Oh yeah, and it's a bit like sub-levels in a dungeon, isn't it? The idea that you have different environments for players to go to that are like dungeon-like. That's a very classic.
So how
thing.
do we get there, Owen? How do we get to the
So
garden?
basically, we have to go into this cave. There is the entrance caverns. There's the garden, and then there's the palace. Those are the three areas.
So the idea is that we can't, even though the cave's on a hill, when we approach the cave, then it will be surrounded by, from a distance, it would be transparent, but there's a sort of a sphere of force preventing people from entering, right? And then we have to go in the hill. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go in the cave. You can't you can't dig down or whatever. No, that's
no. Okay.
Yeah. So this sets up, and this is the threshold, and this is something which is very much pushing you into that fairy tale territory of here is. I think one reason why sometimes people really like this, you can see why this was an influence, and probably in a way that what was not entirely understood. But I remember seeing it mentioned a lot in OSR circles, 10 years and more ago as this is this kind of combat is a failure state. You can solve stuff other ways. And like it's the mythic underworld, that kind of stuff. All of these things
this
are
is
here.
Literally
I agree.
The combat is a failure state module.
Yeah.
That we're
oh no,
cover.
Indeed. That's the thing is, I think it's seen as almost as model of the entire game when it's not. A wizard forbids it.
It's random. It's more like tactical trinity or maybe tactical duality. Okay.
Yeah. There are some things. There's some DM advice on. Look, you gotta judge the player's motives if they get into a fight. If they're attacked, fair enough. if they're evil, they can get XP for killing stuff. But like you've got to, that's one thing is that the preference is for no XP to be granted for killing monsters. But not every monster killed or whatever else is going to cause a ban, like a penalty, because it might well be that the players have been forced into it.
We should get into those elements because I think they're worth discussing.
Yeah.
But since the entrance caverns are actually
separate, yes.
From that
yeah, no, they are. I was just saying in terms of the tactical side of things, yeah. So, but right. That's one thing is the early part is separate. Can
we look at the map?
Yeah, we at the map. Probably. Yes. I'll see how.
I mean, in the front, I believe that this PDF that you have not acquired the other superior PDF. There we go, the entrance caverns, as we see.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Behold,
this is a PDF. Here is my copy.
Nary a hint of jaqueezing the dungeon. This is
I think it's called loopy-doopying.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my apology. I didn't mean to exactly loopy-doopy.
Yeah, indeed.
Right, we got to call things by their proper name now. No, so yes, this is a dungeon design map drawing technique known as the line with 3 branching paths.
Yeah, it's more or less the line with a couple of side rooms.
Yes, and a squiggly.
Actually, this is something Melan, friend of the show, Melan diagrams are helpful for realizing. You're like, this is a line that has meaningfully 3 rooms off the line. That is what is going on in this.
And there's a little branching path there, so that when the players say, "Well, I look there," they won't actually have to explore down the blind passageway. They'll just see it, and maybe they'll take
it's 20 feet.
One turn to have the dwarf search for a secret passage that doesn't exist.
Yeah. But yeah, this is not this whole section is not really meant to be like a point of exploration, is it? This is just here's a series of challenges. And it's something I've kind of realized in a few cases over time. I've definitely concluded that is sometimes a helpful part of a dungeon experience. I've said this a bit with my adventure site contest reviews. In a couple of cases, there's like a dungeon or a small whatever, and it's quite linear, but that's kind of okay for me because the particular purpose in the environment is not meant to be like, here's a whole area to explore. It's just meant to be, here are some things to look at and some challenges before or separate from the main thing.
It's like a transition, between the the normal world and then magic fairy tale garden land. You have to put a cave in there. And what can we find in the cave, Owen?
So I was going to say, let's actually keep it for a minute on.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
On the map for a second, and we can go to the text if we need to. Rather than looping the dungeon, dead ending the dungeon. Yep.
Isn't there there must be a later module author with some notoriety that's only produced linear dungeons.
Yeah. Well, there's even one of our very favorites on this channel for both you and me, and highly respected. Like Bruce Cordell is quite happy to be like, by the way, here are 7, and not all. I think the only time we've reviewed one of his modules here, he does have a couple of quite clever loopy doops in there. But in some of the things, like this dungeon is 7 rooms. They are a line, and he doesn't get.
But it's not. It's not a recurring pattern.
No. It's something. I think he's quite tactical in his decisions about those things, isn't he? I think he knows when it doesn't matter. But yeah, no, there will certainly be. I think you can find plenty of later authors who essentially only write linear dungeons. Jeff points out that dead ends you can add your own stuff in, and to be fair, this would be a prime one, like the dead end that Prince pointed out. Down there in the middle of the map, that would be a great place to put on like an extra couple of rooms, like a sealed tomb from a different civilization.
Put Stone Hell in there, and then at the bottom, the other one you put Rapanath.
And Barrow Maze underneath
put
it.
Arden Pool, you put in the third little corridor.
Yeah, and then you have like a Vampire the Masquerade module at the bottom of that.
Well, yes, exactly. So Wizard Random says something about random encounters, but little does he know that the random encounters don't, they only trigger once you enter the garden, which is large enough to sustain such a thing.
Yes, indeed. You thought you had a point random, but you have not dealt with their wizard flu. But yeah, exactly. Normally, dead ends and things and depth passages are a reasonable small part of a dungeon, partly because they press time, and time is the major resource in many ways, along with health points.
Yes, and
points.
Love Me Won't makes a good point that Gunderhoven is good. I think you could put Gunderhoven in C3A. You could maybe squeeze it in there at the end of the little.
Yeah,
They kind of look like ovaries. You put Gunderhoven in there.
yeah.
Okay,
Just
but
replace the content of C3A. So
yeah,
you have an empty cavern, and then you have the Cave of Echoes, and the Cave of Echoes is sort of there. I think Porphyrio put it there to help people in the local area because he liked them. And you're meant to be able to ask. And so I think it's that Orlando and Juliana had asked for help, and the Cave of Echoes said to go further in. So there's, yeah.
Wait, by the way, Owen,
Yes.
I need a 2-minute break. Are you comfortable with
Yeah.
entertaining our guests by
Yeah.
regaling more of the contents, telling them about the awesome poltergeists and the even cooler Mudman encounter? And I
Yeah.
will return
No, I'll
shortly.
just
Don't
make
tell them
up. I'll
anything about
make up
C6.
lies about. I'll make up lies about you. Don't
Lies.
worry.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Tell about my personal life, the intimate details and secrets that only I have shared with you. Shared it only with
Webcams
you.
that I have set up in Prince's flat.
Webcam shows, my OnlyFans, all that stuff. I will be back.
Yeah.
Sorry, very sorry. 2 minutes. All right.
No, go for it. Go for it. Yeah. Everyone, put your favorite scuttlebutt and rumor about Prince that we need to spread in the chat whilst he is away, and we'll share the best of them later. Yeah, I mean, essentially, in terms of what we're going for, is the gimmick of C2 is that this is a cave of echoes that gives advice about what help you can have, and it only actually helps 0-level creatures, so you can't actually get anything as a unless you want to be healed from something that later happens, the Fountain of All Heal, which brainwashes you. So this is the kind of gimmick: is you can go left or right, I guess. Right, you're going to find out there's some weird magic going on, and then left is actually the way you need to go. Okay, here we go. We've got some scuttlebutt about Prince. What I've heard about Prince, I heard the price of the next nap is a copy of Zach's limited $1,500 module. I think that's true. And I'd probably say that if you put something in for the next nap and you don't get that's false advertising on Prince's part. And what finally discredits him and proves he's a Nazi, as everyone has been claiming for all these years.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm back. What have I missed?
He's actually from Belgium, not the Netherlands, and he hates bicycles and stroopwafels. Yep, I think that's probably true.
I don't care for stroopwafels super much. They're pretty good. I could never hate bicycles. That's a slanderous lie.
Yep. Some say that Prince consumed the flesh of Andy Serkis to gain his power.
I gotta Google who that. Oh, it's
you
Gollum.
You know who Andy Serkis is. Well, also Kino Loy, that great, really fantastic guest role in Andor.
Right.
The guy who's like the prison dormitory boss, the capo. He's like a.
I've seen a couple of episodes. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's some of the best. There's a few other modern Star Wars things which are decent, and it is the only thing that's really good. What were you going to say, sorry, Prince?
Yeah, well, I mean, that in Andor, it's like it's Star Wars, but you could just have an argument with your girlfriend, and then you can have sex and drink coffee afterwards, or something like that. That's sort of like a normal human interaction in Andor. It was a very very street level sort of believable show. It was very good.
Yeah. Oh, we often discuss Star Wars Extended Universe on this this channel.
But just only the erotic parts.
Only the erotic parts. But I recently, on the note of that, the
erotic parts.
Yeah, I did recently read Truce at Bakura. We can talk about it more another time. But I was like, this is okay. It's kind of weird. Was my conclusion.
We
about
should discuss
the novel,
that now.
The Truce at
Now
Bakura.
that we have a captive audience that wants to hear about.
The main thing was that there is some girl who Luke can't be with because she won't leave her planet anymore because her planet needs her and the galaxy needs him.
I thought Truce at Bakura was about the rebels and the Empire teaming up against the
that is the one. Yeah, that is the one. And the Velociraptors are like, they both use human souls. This is true, to power droids, battle droids, but also there's this whole one of the major characters is a human who has been like really seriously abused by them, and it's insanely dark. And you're like,
pedophile, soul-eating velociraptors. Yeah, exactly.
No, pretty much. It's But and it turns out they're completely evil. And you're like, oh, I thought there'd be more subtlety. X-wing series is great. I think Prince likes X-wing too. I like
I
X-wing.
love the second half by Aaron.
Alston,
Aaron
one of our
Alston.
D&D heroes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Not
don't
actually,
love.
not a top tier D&D creator, but one of those guys who, when I see on like certain D&D modules, I'm like, it's going to be okay. It's not going to be
Yeah,
great, but it's going to
it
be
was okay
okay.
in for Miss Dara. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
for
first
Mystara.
half of X-wing is after the first book is pretty bad. It was a
Yeah,
sort of Star Wars Top Gun by Michael
yeah,
Hackpole. I think it introduced. Well, we're talking about Star Wars, so we have to talk about. I think the thing I recall most is you had like a race of like Fox people, like Bothans, and Michael Hackpole. He's just such a creative author that he came up with a character who was also a farm boy from Tatooine. He just didn't have any force powers. He was basically Luke Skywalker. But the thing is, instead of Princess Leia, he had like a the female fox pilot that he that he would rail, and I was just like confused that like nobody batted an eye at this sort of sick interspecies
well,
romance.
it's in Star Wars. You know, the main thing the Empire was suppressing was
Yeah,
furries.
yeah, of course. The rebels are okay with that. Nah, I don't think
Yeah,
Wedge Antilles would let that fly. Gang.
imagine telling Wedge Antilles, by the way, half your squadron of furries. He'd be like, okay,
Yeah,
we're going to kill them.
like he gets
That's
like all sorts of like fucked up diseases. I don't know. I don't know about that one, man. Okay, so
okay.
very
Beyond the Crystal
informative,
Cave.
relevant aside. Sorry, let's go
Yeah,
back to the
yeah,
module.
yeah. Beyond the Crystal Cave. In Beyond the Crystal Cave, there are no furries.
Mm, indeed.
So
So,
yeah, I'd said basically about the Cave of Echoes, which basically gives you a wish to get rid of the Fountain of All Heal brainwashing. That's the relevant thing about that. But then you go on, and there's the poltergeist.
but
That's what you're saying. There's a
well,
poltergeist who scares you, or can, or
uh,
there's two, I
so
think.
about the Well of Echoes, because
Yeah,
it's almost like it's kind of hidden, right? Because if it it telegraphs the the ask, and then
yeah,
the
yeah,
but if you actually
yeah,
start
yeah,
trying to wish for stuff, you get zapped. You kind of have to figure
yeah,
out you can only use it for a very specific purpose. And my question was
yeah,
like, what? Well, how would you figure that out?
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it just opens up a mystery, doesn't it? Of like, so there's some magic that you can get something from them, essentially.
Some of the inhabitants might know. That's maybe we're skipping ahead a
Well,
little
no,
bit,
no,
but I
the
think with
point
the
is that
well, it is relevant.
Juliana
Go ahead.
and Orlando know, don't they? The people who know that it does stuff are the people you're meant to rescue.
Yes, but then people that have fallen under the effect of like,
Mm,
um, okay, so all right, okay, gang, this is how it works. When you get to the in the garden,
mm.
there's something called the
Fountain of
Fountain
all
of
heal.
All Heal, I believe it was called, which is a good
Hmm.
name. And if you drink from it, you are indeed not just healed, but you restore all levels and like all that stuff. That's really great. But then you have to save versus magic, or you're cursed. You're essentially cursed. You will not leave the garden, and you essentially become an NPC under the DM's control. So, um, but you can get rid of this effect by wishing for that in the Cavern of Echoes. But my question is like, who knows about the properties of the Cavern of Echoes and the Fountain of All Heal? And that's something I think the
The
adventure
Green
could have
Man.
spent more time on. Yeah, the Green Man would
Yeah,
definitely know, right?
mm,
But I feel,
yeah.
yeah, and we'll get to the
Organization. It'd be helpful if you had more. Yeah, yeah.
right. The whole point, I, the whole point of the adventure, and we alluded to this before, is that once you get past the two very scary monster encounters in the entrance cavern, so I think there's a poltergeist with a fear effect that can
Two
drive you either,
poltergeists,
yes,
an ochre
into
jelly, some mudmen.
yeah, and the idea is that the poltergeists either drive you into a cavern with all of these stalactites, or like into a cavern with all of these, ochre jellies.
Ochre jelly and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the Mudman pool is just I don't know, it's a very cool encounter.
Yeah.
But once you get beyond that, in the rest of the garden, the idea is actually that all the monsters are they're not evil. And
if
you're
they're
actually not supposed
intelligent,
to
they're not
slaughter
aggressive.
them.
If they're intelligent, they don't tend to be aggressive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, unless you attack them first, right? So you
Yeah. Yeah.
actually this is the meme. Combat is a failure state, and for new listeners that maybe know what the OSR is, um, and they don't know the context. So in the OSR, there's a meme or a truism that says combat is a failure state, and that's a very sort of misguided idea about how D&D is supposed to work. They're trying to convey something where, I don't know, you don't always want to fight, but this often gets misinterpreted as this idea that like whenever you fight, this is that's a failure on the part of the players, and it's not really true. There's a ton of fighting in D&D that's unavoidable, and combat is like a
Mhm.
uh, huge part of the game, right? So calling it's like if you would say combat is a failure state and you were playing Doom, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't click. But
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
it clicks. Here it's more or less true.
Mm. But in these opening caves, you do have to fight. Is the point?
Yes.
So yeah, in C3, there's the haunted cavern, and that has these poltergeists. And if you fail your save against spells, you either run back or you run into one of three dangerous encounters. Either you run into stalactites, but you find treasure there. To be fair, you run into an ochre jelly, or you run into some mudmen. And obviously, you actually want to go to the mudmen because they're at C4. If you look on the map, you'll see they're at C4. And so, really, you either want to save versus the poltergeists, or you want to accidentally run forward to fight the mudmen, I guess.
Tell us about Mudmen, Owen.
So the mudmen. I mean, I can probably get the page up for the mudmen.
I feel it's such a classic. I don't know why I think that, right? Because it's not
Mm,
necessarily archetypal, but it feels archetypal where it
yeah.
you have to wade through a pool of mud, and then like the mud men, they come forth. They don't do any damage, but they throw mud at you, and they try to like bowl you over. And if you get hit by the mud, it hardens and you slow down, and you
Mm.
slow down more and more and more until
And
you're
then you suffocate.
immobile. Yes, and you need help. But then
Yeah.
and also the mudmen, if they if they bowl you over and they explode, you're covered in mud. But then if you're still in the mud pool, they'll just reform, right? Like
Mm.
it's there's something very awesome about that sort of image. I think it feels like archetypal fantasy, but I wouldn't be able to off the top of my head recall the primary source.
The never-ending story that actually comes later. But yeah,
Yeah, it's a childhood
yeah,
trauma. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, indeed. Yeah, your tools can be damaged by the mud, which obviously can limit you once you're into the dungeon. There is treasure though. There's some dried corpses of a fighter and a thief, and that can give you a bit of treasure, a bit of dungeon gear, and a dagger +1.
Right.
So, yeah, there is some treasure. It's one of those things. It's both giving you a few things that are going to make you weaker going into the dungeon, and it's giving you a few upsides, a few potential treasures.
Yeah.
And then yeah, go for it.
Oh, I was going to say I think the primary purpose of these encounters is to just sort of uh you kind of you lull the play. You don't give the game away immediately. They're like, okay, we're dungeon crawling. I get it. We're going through the
Mm,
caves. There's monsters there to
mm.
fight. They're not the worst, right? They're not the most deadly encounters ever made. Um, and yeah, there's a bit of treasure, and then you get to a very important part, which is I think the uh, we talk about that earlier. That a lot of people they sort of neglect the moment where you enter a dungeon proper, the
Yeah,
transition, if you will, and that's really
yeah,
well
yeah.
done here.
And this is, as I said, the archetypal mythic underworld moment. So you go through the tunnel, you get beyond these mudmen, and then you get to the crystal cave and the observation room. And the crystal cave is an impossibly slow, essentially, waterfall, which you have to. It's a bit like a shield in Dune. You have to push through it slowly to get through it, or you have to use magic
It,
to part it or destroy it. Like
I think
destroy water,
if you
part
read
water.
the description, I think if you try to push through, you actually die. You need to part it magically. If you
Yeah,
do it, um, it would take about 5 times, but it says during this time your feet would become firmly fixed in the pool and your body helplessly enmeshed. in the water of the
Yeah.
falls.
I
It would
guess
actually
it's that
kill
as
you.
you first go into it, it takes you 5 rounds to go through, but the point is after a couple of rounds, there's a lot of pressure on you. I think is the point is because of the fact you're beginning to move at the rate of the water. I guess,
Yes.
like the speed of the water. So suddenly you're
Yeah,
slowing
the
down.
water's just
It's
so
like
yeah.
it's like an event horizon, isn't it? That's quite fun. It's quite like an event horizon. Like
Yeah, I
you're
guess.
becoming
But
slower and slower. Time is changing as you enter it. Yeah.
yeah, you just get piled down by the water. Yeah.
So this is the crystal cave, by the way. Is this water that is really hard to do anything with? But yeah, you can destroy it, you can part it, you can lower it, you can dispel it. And it does say you can camp safely in the crystal cave to allow the correct spells to be learned.
So rememorize, yeah.
Yeah,
What
so
do we think about
essentially, if the
this?
players realize that they have to do something, they can do that. You don't penalize them for that. You don't penalize them by being inside the time zone. You go like, yeah, fair enough. Just quick, spend an evening memorizing spells.
Yeah. Well, what do we think about this this way of like entering and presumably also leaving the dungeon, right?
Well, I suppose there's two things you're going to take from it. One is that I need to remember. You said that it depends if there's a limitation on the wish. I'm trying to remember if in P13 or whatever it is, there's a limitation on the wish to do with departure. But yeah, I think it's something where what is going to be really clear to players is that there's something weird about this and possibly about the area beyond it. It may have to do with time. That's one thing you might realize. And everything beyond is going to be different to what came before. I think there's definitely a really strong sense of that. I like it. I think it's iconic for a reason. It's not necessarily overly direct, so this still plays into how much are you happy to have 2 years pass per adventuring day. But yeah, I think it works. I don't know. What do you think?
I like it too. Because again, doing it for every dungeon would probably be pretty lame. But if you are going to introduce, like, say, uh, the dungeon as like a genuine, sort of like a magical location, then
Yeah.
this is kind of cool. Like it feels sort of like you're expending resources just going into it. You have to part the water or
Yeah.
something like that.
And passing the
Cool.
water is quite a iconic image as well, isn't it? Like it's a Moses and the Red Sea thing. The sense of the change between zones. You said transition, and I think that
Yeah.
idea is something I think about in lots of art form, basically of all kinds. Is the way in which performing arts and D&D and novels, the idea of how scenes and ideas in music, obviously you get this to do with development, how things transition into the next thing is a big concept, and it's probably something which in lots of perfectly good dungeons people have made, there can be a sense, sometimes when you feel like stuff has just been dumped, it's perfectly good stuff, but it's all like there's 20 rooms and they all have stuff in them. Now, partly that's a failure of a sense of coherence where you're like, if I go here, this is this kind of place, and these are the rules of this place. And I think this really clearly signals what's going to be strange coming next.
Yeah, it's all a bit like it's a little bit of like foreshadowing and showmanship. I mean, I'm also reminded of another dungeon by Ed Greenwood, and you would only be able to enter it if you made love to the alien fox person pilot. Who would actually be in front of the dungeon. Yeah, you would have to do that. Wedge Antilles, he would be there. He's actually in a secret door. He's watching. You can detect him too.
Yeah. He's well, he's getting the information, so you'll be executed for your crimes in the field.
That's what he says later on.
Yeah.
To
But is he
confront
just a
him,
pervert? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and then there's an
I'm
observation
sorry,
room which looks disused. It looks disused, and you then go into the alcove and then you transport to the garden. That's. But again, that's a clear transition. The idea that this is this place which is now disused. Things have changed here, and
it's not so
the
easy to
alcove
teleport back, right? That's also another point. Once you're in the garden, you're there until you find the exit. Yeah.
Until you find the exit, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's a teleportation device which it's a fresco with a woodland scene continues onto its floor scene. So it's going to look unusual in the context of the room. I guess it's not necessarily completely obvious that it's a teleporting device, but It's at the end
You'll
of the
find it.
entire linear. It's the end of the
Correct.
linear thing. I think you're going to work it out
You
pretty
just
quickly.
burned a 4th level spell to get through this wall, right? There better be
There
something
must
good
be
behind
something
it.
here. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Also,
Exactly.
it'll detect it. It'll detect as magic. There's some. I say that there are things about like this all detects as magic, but I think that will presumably detect as magic.
Okay.
Essentially.
So
So
now
here we
after
go.
this,
We're
can
in the
you pull up the
garden.
map of Porfirio's garden?
I can pull up the first half of it.
Yeah. Oh, the first half. Well, very generous. How
Yeah,
about, can we
because
see the second
of the
half of the
because the
circle
gatefold
that's maybe on the other end of the PDF you have?
of the PDF. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
imagine so.
Can you show us? That's a
Um,
roster.
yeah, is it page 36 or is it? Oh no.
You must have read it at some point. How dare. Do you
Well,
really
no,
only
I
have
have.
half the
As no,
map?
I have a physical copy.
All right.
Uh,
All right.
um,
You only
you
have
know,
half the map.
well, I have the whole map. You have
It's
half the map.
I didn't send this piece of shit to you. How dare you, sir? Anyway, okay, gang.
Look,
Just
the weak suffer. The weak suffer what they must.
imagine the other 1/3 or
Is
1/4
is
of the
the same?
circle.
Yeah. Come
Yeah. Oh boy. All right. No problem. No problem.
Um,
Let's see.
the other side, I'll pop it up manually on the screen. I'll present. It
That would be
also has a simple map of the Palace of Spires, which is Zone 3. It's not a particularly complicated map. There is a maiden spiral staircase going up this very simple building. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, essentially it is, as you can see, it's a kind of this mini wilderness that you can technically walk anywhere you want in. That's one thing but you're going to get lost if you go off the trails. That's the other thing.
yes.
And there are different subzones. There's a forest, there's a lake, there's like a meadow, and there's an area by a hedge maze. I'd say
And
that's
each
yeah.
I guess I was going to say that each area you have a percentage based chance to encounter the inhabitant of like these
Mm-hmm.
zones that you see.
Mm-hmm.
The boundaries of the encounter area. And it was like cumulative. So at some point you will definitely you'll run into them.
Yeah. So wanderers appear on a roll of 1 in 6. They do not appear on the lawns, so that's going to be in the forest and the rocks. And within the area you're in, when you're in G5 or whatever, which you can see there in the upper left portion. G5, G4 is the dryads, G5 is the frogs. Well, no, G6 is the frogs. G5 is the satyrs. Essentially, if you're in that area, there's a chance of meeting the particular things that are there. And anywhere that is not the lawns, so the forest and the rocks, you can meet the normal wanderers as well. The normal wanderers are all animals: giant porcupine, giant skunk, male stags, giant badgers. And they can be hostile, and presumably that means if you kill them in self-defense, per the earlier instructions, that doesn't count as a forfeit. You haven't become an enemy of the whole garden, though the green man, who is the caretaker, may still appear. Anyway,
yeah, the green man starts appearing on the random. Oh yeah, you encounter an angry god. You have a chance to encounter an angry god.
Yeah.
This is another detail easy to forget.
Yeah. He's got some good treasure, this green man. I think you should rob him. I don't think you should rob him. So that is potentially punishing that the green man might, if you're attacked by some giant badgers and you kill them, you don't forfeit the dungeon, but the green man has a 1 in 6 chance of turning up. That's possibly a bit harsh. In the specific,
does he kill the characters or
no? He is it confusion or brainwashing? He kind of screws them up.
Intoxicating breath weapon, yes.
Where are his stats? So let's start. Where are they? The green man's lair. Where are his stats again? I don't know. Where are they? Where's the green man? Where's his stats?
He's all the way in the back, Owen.
Is he actually in the special section? Yeah.
Yeah, like me, I was also in the
Yeah,
special
in the
section.
special section, yeah. Mudman, Bark Bear, the Green Man, God of Growth and Abundance. Should we go and see him because he's relevant, and you can meet him on a 1 in 6 chance if you kill some giant badger.
It says he's just going to breathe on you,
Yeah,
so he has an intoxicating breath weapon.
he could be a gardener, a brewer, a forester, and we don't get a specialist priesthood for him, which is a shame. And he's got a breath weapon once per round, which intoxicates people, no saving throw, and they can become comatose. You use the DMG for this, and you might become a dipsomaniac. So yeah, basically he knocks people out, and I'm trying to think. Doesn't he? Does he then try to expel people? I'm trying to remember.
This is one we
Okay.
really should have nailed. I
Yeah.
think he.
Well,
Yeah, I
I've read
feel
it. I've read
no,
it today.
of course.
So
No,
I'm
I feel with
yeah,
but
yeah.
this is the problem with UK1 in general, that the entire adventure kind of hinges on you, you know, running all these interactions with, or the characters sort of interacting with all of these, these encounters, and these are all, you've got pixies, you've got leprechauns, there's dryads, there's treants, there's even some fire newts, I believe, but like all of these fairy tale creatures. But then the actual first of all, there's no funny voices slash role
Yeah.
playing considerations
Which is the
whatsoever.
definition of a good module, yeah.
Exactly. But besides that, there's also no um there's not really much in the way of like even gaming related notes on like how they would behave if you would try to interact with them. On occasion, it'll specify when they will be hostile or not. But what becomes critical in an adventure where you do a lot of talking and encounters is like, well, what does everybody know, right? Like what do they have to tell, or what are
Yeah.
their objectives? And that's
You hear a
often
bit.
kind
I
of
think
absent.
basically, I would say on the same page we're already on. You know that you are told the leprechauns might know these things in a few places. You get information about what the leprechauns can know.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
are more or less the only people who seem to be willing to help.
That's right. Oh, the leprechauns, it's just you have to endure the DM's humiliating punishments, and once the DM gets
Yeah,
bored with torturing you,
yeah. He
then
steals stuff
he,
from you and tells you
yeah,
limericks.
yeah,
Here
that's
we
right.
go. Here's some
He
limericks.
breaks out
The river
some
yonder
riddles.
appearing has 5 bridges of which you are hearing. The problem we set is how do you get across each and return to this clearing? So yeah,
Yes.
you're given a clue. There's something going on with the bridges of the Endless River, but it doesn't actually matter. Like that, that's sort of a fake riddle. The second limerick tells you about the Fountain or Heel. The third hints at the fact there's a hidden palace, which is really good information. The fourth tells you how to teleport in the maze next to the hidden palace, and the fifth is also a gag.
Right.
Uh,
It, what
EOTB has given his opinion on UK1. It's underwhelming.
oh,
Karen 1.
that's right. No, I was going to say that
Grumpy Uncle EOTB.
the I I was actually wondering, a lot of the monsters do have traditional treasure.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, you can steal
Right.
stuff. Yeah. This
But
is complex because really you're not meant to. You're meant to mostly benefit from the 10,000 gold that you get when you go out, right?
you're level 4 to 7. That's a
Yeah.
beggar's ransom. That's a like
It's
a
yeah, you're
well,
getting like 1,500 or 2,000 each. Yeah.
yeah.
There's a few things that you can get. You can get the stuff from the caves, and that's going to be a little bit more, but nothing amazing. Like it's decent for the amount for 7 rooms. It's an okay amount of treasure, um, and then there's whatever you can benefit from via wish, essentially.
I mean,
Uh, yeah,
everybody getting a wish is pretty big. That's
yeah, yeah,
no
yeah,
lie.
yeah.
That's a
Mm.
really good reward at the end of the
It
adventure.
is,
That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah. It certainly it does make you think though. It makes you wonder: was this spec'd for gold for XP? Because you
Yes,
kind
it
of think
was.
no.
I
Yeah,
think it
well, no,
was.
it was officially, but when you look at the design, does the design suggest that gold for XP is a major lever?
Yes, but it gets confusing because you know, all the monsters still have hordes. So then, you start to think like, hey, wait, is that just there so the evil people have something to do, or are we supposed to like talk? Are we supposed to talk with these animals while and should the thief just be invisible while that's happening and just just be robbing them blind? Basically,
Yeah.
that's probably the best way to play this.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's something where what you could say is, and I'm thinking as a DM, because you're, what forfeits it is if you've taken out, in terms of the reward, is if you've taken loads of treasure and it's really obvious you have, or if you killed loads of stuff. I don't know how they'd know that, but I guess Juliana and Orlando could say, "Oh, I think loads of stuff got killed." But of
No,
course, you
I
could
mean they
imagine
would know. It's
another
not a lot.
situation. Yeah, you can imagine something where people are you steal some of the stuff, have conflict with the NPCs, but don't kill them because they avoid them, like stealing the Ioun stones from the leprechauns. This is in G2. Um, you can imagine, and then the leprechauns become malicious, but then if you just avoid them after that, you've got 5 Ioun stones, for instance.
Yeah,
So
I think
there's
that's
there,
one of the harder ones to like probably get away with. Yeah.
yeah, but you get the idea. There could be there is almost certainly a reasonable medium ground that isn't completely covered. This is, I know, the criticism you've kind of been offering about. You don't always know what the boundaries are of these things, but I think there is a reasonable middling ground where people steal something, but it doesn't count as forfeiting the whole reward because
Um,
it's just in their bag. They've stolen like one thing and it's in their bag.
well, a lot of it is going to just hinge on like how the DM is going to adjudicate all of the
Mm,
interaction. Because the whole, I mean, the
yeah.
trick of the adventure is just that like you figure out, oh, I actually shouldn't be killing, treant sprites, some dryads. Some of the monsters are hostile, I guess, and
Hmm.
are actually threatening, and but you should just avoid them, um,
Yeah.
or talk with them. And that's kind of like the way you play this adventure. And how the DM is going to adjudicate how generous the DM is going to be. That's kind of like probably going to determine, uh, you
Yeah.
know, how good of a time you're going to have playing this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly quite sensitive to that. There are some things like, again, there's lots of information about how to use treasure or how to engage with treasure being taken. There is an
Right.
assumption that players are taking stuff. So the fire drake eggs, it's like, look, the young inside will die unless you incubate them. If you incubate them, they'll grow in this way. The same with you can steal this quite good treasure from the leprechauns, but they might try to kill you afterwards. There is a shield in the cave of the frogs. You can definitely take the shield that's in cave of the frogs because it's not owned by the frogs and it's not going to count as ransacking by any means, but it is a cursed shield. So, yeah.
I think probably uh this well if I had to guess, this would probably have been it probably did run this and it probably had a good time because it's like different.
Mm.
This is
Yeah,
a good example of like a um it's almost like a gambit or a trick where you know
yeah.
you put this on the players, and if they're used to something else, they might enjoy it, especially if they like novelty. But if you would do
Mm.
this every single time, it would become eh, very unsatisfying. Probably the rate of progression wouldn't be very high, right?
Uh, there's an intro again. G11, the Barkbear's Grove, gives quite specific advice about what essentially can be retrieved without damaging trees, and what is retrieved but would damage a tree and therefore count as hostile to the garden.
Right.
So yeah, um,
So
I
it's
think
more about very light,
yeah,
sort of inoffensive, opportunistic pilfering is kind of like what
yeah,
you're meant to do here, instead of like a nice, thorough strip mining.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
other encounters, Owen?
Yeah. Let's get some other encounters. Yeah, I was just
Yes,
having a look myself to see what would be a good place to skip to.
dryads.
Yeah, we can look at the Dryads. Yeah, let's look at the
Well,
Dryads. I think
I
that's
mean, this
G5,
is a fairly
G6. Oh,
standard
there's
dryad
6.
encounter. with a like
Yeah.
I mean I like the twist that if the if the players would normally they would spend a year if they're charmed with the dryads, but
Yeah.
because of the temporal acceleration, it would be 720 years.
To
Which is, I think,
2,880 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a real dirtbag move. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here too,
Uh,
right? With the dryads, you um there's notes on how they interact, but I think I would have
mhm,
liked some notes on like, well, let's say they're not hostile or you befriend them or
mm.
whatever. Well, what do you ask them? What do you say?
Yeah.
Does everybody know where the palace is? Say or like
Yeah,
that's going to be very important
we were
to
told
running the
earlier that
adventure,
people won't talk about the palace other than the leprechauns. So there is a
right?
thing that your upside and yeah there's a criticism here. The upside on dealing with a bunch of these creatures is quite limited. The dryads are simply an obstacle unless you specifically raid their few hundred gold, less than 1,000 gold worth of stuff and a cloak of elvenkind. Um, like that's what they have, and you could probably get away with some of that. But like the dryads are largely just a negative obstacle. The
Oh,
leprechauns are useful, but they're also potentially annoying.
I mean, two cloaks of elvenkind is nothing to. I was going to say something like, so nothing to
It's
sneeze
boots,
at. Okay,
one pair of
well,
boots, one cloak. But yeah,
oh yeah, pair of boots and a
yeah,
cloak. So that's pretty good. But it's just it seems to me that like you encounter all of these creatures, and then you have to interact with them, and then you're like, okay, all right, Mister whatever giant mouse, um, do you have anything to say? Like, and then it's like, no. Oh, well, do you know anything about this garden? Fuck you. Yeah. Well, how do I get out
yeah,
of here? I
yeah,
don't know. Fuck you. Right. And they all say that, right? Except for the leprechauns in the beginning, and that's kind of that's too bad. Like, I feel
yeah.
there should be more. You should be rewarded more for interacting with them.
Yeah, no, and indeed, I think that's something you're going to have to work on. E does say something. We addressed this a bit earlier. E, the thing about the aging stuff is either the DM just declares the NPC, the PC now an NPC, or their entire campaign world, to the extent it's detailed, is nuked. Yeah, we discussed that essentially, if this is a single party campaign and you're setting this up as an opportunity for a time jump of 200 years or 400 years or whatever it might be, sorry, 2 years or 4 years or something, um, then it kind of is fine because it suits your purposes as the DM. If it's a multi-party stable-based
Playing
campaign,
one-on-one time.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. You have
well,
to
yeah. But
now
if it's
wait
doing
4 years.
yeah,
Yes.
if it's anything else, it either leaves some PCs behind, as you say, or you have to do something weird to make catch it up. Yeah, you just use Gamma World and Boot Hill. Exactly. So yeah, I think as you can
I
use
think doing a
this kind of
time
thing.
skip is a good opportunity halfway through the
Yeah,
adventure. That is
I no,
nice,
I
right?
think it's something.
Halfway
If
through
you
the
want to
campaign, that
use
is
it,
nice.
you can use it. Yeah,
Correct.
I think it's something which in my campaign, any game I run this in, it's not going to be like 1 day to 2 years. It's going to be, as I said, I think the idea of like a time skip of 1 day to a month or something that kind of just knocks around some of the timetables and stuff in a way the players don't expect, that could be okay. That could be quite good. But
Yeah.
it's the sheer size of a 2 year drop. If they spend 2 days, which I think is a reasonable bet for a kind of, it's not a super challenging dungeon in itself. Well, if they spend 2 days there, then it's 4 years, and yeah, that's obviously for most campaigns that's not going to work. Uh, yeah, but yeah, I agree with you. To go back to what we're saying, that there is a lot of stuff where you could interact with things more, with creatures more, not like the bears or fire drakes, sure, but like the pixies, the satyrs, and you can't really. Um,
Yeah. So that's I
yeah,
think that's a kind of like that would be probably my main criticism of this module,
yeah,
or at least that would be the biggest missed sort of like win, a chance to sort of use all that interaction. And because right
yeah,
now, yeah, it's more that like again, it's like I said, the best way to play this is like everybody, you see them, everybody goes, "Oh, hello, friend," and then the thief is invisible, and he just, he's like, "Okay, how much can I steal without the DM, you know, becoming really mad at me?" Uh, Maybe you have some
Yeah,
other
exactly.
ways to.
There's some sort of there's some interactions and choices that are fun and clever, or
Yeah,
could be fun, but you've got to make them work. I think is the point.
right.
Uh,
What about the
yeah,
bears, Owen? Tell us about the
bears.
bears.
what
Bears,
what about the bears?
beasts,
I think that's before. That's
Battlestar
next to the
Galactica.
bark. Next to the bark bears. Yeah, that they're only encountered in their lair. They will not attack the
Okay.
party unless attacked first. Once roused, they go to bound to their territory, and they use
They
the straw as a bed. And there are no items of value or interest to the
they act in
party here.
generally bear-like fashion. Gotcha. Okay, so that's a bunch
Yeah,
of fucking
yeah,
bears. Okay, great
yeah,
encounter.
yeah.
Okay,
I'd say
so
I would say a bunch of the individual encounters, jokes aside, are you can see they could be quite fun. Like the pixies they're invisible, they won't attack certain kinds of creatures, but they are quite hostile to people entering their zone. And that's kind of all okay, especially because they've got some decent treasure as well. You can get magical arrows, you can get a pearl of power, you can get a potion of clairvoyance. This is all really good treasure and stuff which again, is probably falling within the boundary over what is destroying stuff. However, it's something where because you generally want to avoid fighting stuff, you're like, you've really got to be careful. If the players go like, let's go and kill the pixies and steal their stuff, that's breaching the conditions of the deal, isn't it? Of their original contract.
and then you get
And
you start encountering the oh yeah yeah
yeah,
again then you get that railroading shit, right? Not
mm,
only do you suddenly you start randomly encountering a god who'll start breathing
yeah,
like with his alcohol breath. He'll start
yeah, yeah,
blasting you basically.
yeah,
um but then you arrive, if you complete the mission, then you come back, and then what, the NPC, he reads your mind with his ESP amulet and said, "No, sorry, you broke
yeah.
the terms of the quest. You shall have nothing." And then he
Nothing.
cackles. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course, a bit of this, I would say, a bit of stuff like that is completely reasonable part of a module. Like we said, the
right,
actual spell gimping for the cave, mostly as much as it's a bit noodly, it's like, yeah, fair enough. The medallion of ESP, it's a bit like in Birthright. If you read Birthright supplements, like for settings within Birthright, and they
right,
have all these characters, and all the characters who have blood powers, virtually all of them have the blood power which makes you immune to ESP.
right.
Because they're
Because
like,
they're
look,
sick of it.
imagine, yeah, exactly. Imagine every single NPC. You could just go around and find all their evil plots with one character with ESP.
It's like
Yeah,
it's like there was like natural evolution. Somebody
yeah.
introduced medallions of ESP everywhere, and now the
and,
all the
and the only
games have to
surviving
develop
blood rulers, like with
countermeasures,
the
yeah,
magical
against
blood,
it.
had
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
block ESP power. Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
god.
And I think you can see that with a few of the things. Is it's just there to make sure, not to kind of fit the dungeon theme, but to make sure that like the adventure happens in the way it's kind of meant to.
I think
Which
this
yeah,
would be a cool adventure if you just sort of um figure out a lineup where you do I think, I guess, in games like Hitman, you were rewarded if you could get through an adventure or through a mission without killing
yeah,
anyone. But you could probably knock them out, and that's probably what you have to
yeah.
do here. You just have all
Yeah,
these
I was going to say
non-lethal
you're
sort of
allowed to
attack
do stuff like that.
protocols.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely allowed to do stuff like that. So yeah, um, I need to check all the monster types themselves, but obviously a lot of them, for instance, plenty of them are vulnerable to sleep or color spray. Like plenty of them can be magicked out,
Right.
and those are not banned spells. I don't think color spray might. Yeah,
So
no,
then,
neither sleep nor color spray, for instance, is a banned spell. Um,
ooh, and then
so
you have
yeah,
to you have to
mm,
rob them, but not too much, not in a
yes,
rude
yeah.
way.
Yeah,
So then,
but the general principle is actually reasonable there, and it's about intent as well. Like if the players are doing what they need to do to kind of get through stuff and work out the puzzles, then the DM is meant to judge in their favor. I think.
right.
Um, so I don't mind that. I think there's something there that works. I think it's just your complaint earlier is what's here. It's not very well detailed. It's not like here is a single guide. It's something where you really want like a really professional introduction to the module that's like these are all the things you need to know, not like a information doled out every couple of pages when they've remembered to do it.
Um,
um
I think so. That too. There was one other thing. Oh, I guess we can go over. There's a few sort of magical
mm,
environmental hazards. I guess we already mentioned the fountain of all heal.
Yeah.
There's a river. Does the river do anything, or is it just
I don't think the river does anything, because I think
it
there's
was the
the endless
endless
river.
river?
Is that there's a U lung in it, essentially, but no, there is a
Oh yeah,
puzzle
there's a
about it,
talking
a limerick
dragon in
about it.
there. Yeah,
But
yeah, of course.
the limerick is essentially a time waster.
Right.
So yeah, you should be trying. But the point is that is in the same set of limericks as you get one about the castle and also about the solution to the maze to get into the castle. So it's sort of it's part of a set of things where you have to maybe judge which is which and which one matters. I think is the
Yeah.
point.
And
Yeah, so
there's
that's
a
fine.
there's
But
a
yeah,
poisonous. Oh yeah. What is
yeah.
it? A poisonous garden with dangerous
There's the yellow
roses.
rose arbor and the red rose arbor we can go to
Right.
in a minute. Yeah. I was going to say there's the bark burrs and there's some treasure there you might be able to get that might, but you have to work out whether or not you can get it out or not. The tree ant's lair, and you shouldn't kill the tree ant. The centaur's meadow. The centaurs kind of are again, they've got treasure, but it is odd. This is on your point. You don't know anything about the centaurs. You don't hear about, other than that they're not super hostile. I think is the point. They're not comparatively the most hostile. They just hang out. So
Yes, exactly.
yeah, but you don't. Can they help you? The unicorns. I would say there is a unicorn. This is on the next page.
Oh
You
no.
can get the classic unicorn will agree to be the pure of hearts mount, the pure maiden's mount. However, it won't leave the garden with you, which is a missed opportunity, and you should change that. A fond memory of mine in a campaign was running. It's actually they're in fairy. It was in my Donwood campaign, but they're in fairy in a kind of dream world, hypnagogia, and they encountered a unicorn, and basically the character, the PC who encountered it was a battle nun, like a nun, basically. And I was like, yeah, cool, you're pure of heart. And the unicorn accompanied them and became their friend
Yeah,
and
I
left with
was
them.
about to remark. Surely all of your players, their characters are all like pure maidens. They're all
Yes,
they're definitely
yeah.
all virgins. Yeah.
No, those are the only characters allowed in the campaign. Yeah. But yeah, you get the point anyway. Is that stuff is fun and players enjoy
Yes.
it, and the module is a bit too restrictive on that. I think the idea that the unicorn might go with you, that would be a really cool benefit. Like, what a thing to take out of it, and what a memorable moment of having to befriend the unicorn and then go with it. It comes with you. But the module is very explicit. Like, no, you shouldn't do that.
Don't do it. That would be
Yeah,
too much. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. I think and I think that's an odd thing, because I think so much of this is good in terms of like, oh, that's a nice idea, that's good, that works, that's interesting, and yet it's almost like each time it just comes up to the point of being really good and really like, yeah, that's going to really work, and then it just stops, and it's like, okay, so this is one, the unicorns can be beneficial to you because they can take you around.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
There's a little bit of there's a dungeon on the water. I guess this place kind of
yeah.
reminds me of I don't know if you guys have something like that, where like we call it the Efteling, and it's kind of
Mm.
like it's like an amusement park, but it's based on old fairy tales. You would have
Mm.
uh wait, maybe that was another one. It was Headland van Ooit, which was another one. The land of
Prince is speaking
everywhere.
Dutch, he's not coughing, to be
Sorry.
clear.
and and you would have actors dressed as like these sort of fairy tale figures. You would have a little palace somewhere. I guess you guys have Disney World, or Disneyland, and it's kind of like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That
yeah.
there's a water
Disneyland.
palace. Yeah.
Yeah, in Britain we have something called Alton Towers. Is kind of similar, kind of spooky themed, mostly spooky themed fairy tale kind of stuff. British Columbia has the Enchanted Forest campground. Yep. Yeah, I was going to say there's the arbors, which each have a kind of temporary poison effect, and yeah, there's a mini dungeon, the Lake and Water Palace, which is a home of giant otters, which has a punt. It has a pole. Has a punt with a single pole in it, so there is you can use a boat if you like. And there is some treasure. I guess you could probably take some of the treasure without without breaking the rules. Like there's a silver tray, there's giant otters. And particularly there's a weapon store. The Green Man, however, will insist you return them, but no one will attack you if you are carrying them. Apart from the Green Man, he'll tell you have to return them. So this again is an odd one where you're told explicitly, yeah, this is loot you should try to get, but you don't want to be caught by the green man while doing it, because he'll tell you to
Right.
give it back.
Exactly.
So again, I wonder why. So yeah, here's the question: why do you think, given that there's a lot of fun to be had here, you can see it, you can see what's working here and what can work. Why do you think, Prince, this has been designed in this way that is so, at each point, narrows rather than opens up choice?
Well, it's because it's well, the authors had an interesting idea, but now they have to. The problem is you have to then set it up so that the players really can't do what they've been doing for several levels already and use their natural inclination
Yeah,
and fuck people up. So I guess that's why y- you start gimping things. I mean, it is kind
yeah,
of cool to have, like, again, in the middle of the lake. There's what is it? There's a magic palace there, and then there's
yeah,
giant otters in the water that play around with you, but as soon as they tip over you're in the little boats. That's why I have to think of like what do you call it? An amusement park. You're in a
yeah,
little
yeah,
boat.
yeah.
And if they actually tip you out of the boat, then you fall in the water, and then they do attack you and try to fucking murder you, I guess.
Well, no, it's that
You,
you can drown. It's that they're playing, but if you fall over and you're encumbered, you're going to drown. That's the thing that happens with the otters. The otters aren't trying to kill you; they just might accidentally kill you.
they say each adult has a 30% chance per round to upset the punt. Once they have capsized it, they
Oh no,
will attack the party
sorry. It's
members in the
if no,
water.
it's if you're playing. It's if you're playing with them, and if they're playing with you and you attack them, then they attack the boats.
Oh no, I see. Yes, sorry about that. Okay, again, you get punished if they. Oh, you sorry if you attempt to fight them, then they will actually fuck you
Yeah,
up. And we have drowning rules here.
yeah, yeah.
It's yes, encumbered characters you'll drown in 5 rounds. Take 1d8 points of
And it
damage.
does say use secondary abilities like professions and dexterity to determine if you're good at using the boat, stuff like that. There
Yeah,
is a mini
lovely.
system there of them. Yeah, that works. Yeah, he has never gotten over the burning of the White House, as he blames UK adventure writers for their
It's
patronising attitude.
it is the it is the I
Yeah,
did say I did we did already say this is like they should have called the module combat is a failure state. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something where I compared it to this was at the start. So again, I think you missed it. But like, it's a bit like how U2 has a really decent dungeon in it, but you're kind of not meant to do it. There's an odd thing. The U modules have a bunch of really great ideas, like it's a haunted house, but actually it's not a haunted house. Or you have to break into a pirate ship. U1 has two of those things.
I
That's how fun
I,
that is. But you
I
just get
think
this
it
odd
could
thing
be
where
all right.
sometimes it's not quite executed in the way you need it to be as
It,
written.
it, I really have to like I wonder like how quickly do the players catch on, like, okay, wait a minute, guys, we can't, we don't have to do we can't do the regular thing, but you
Mm,
know and then the question is, do they still attempt to, like, I think not allowing people to loot or
mm,
inhibiting players from also stealing and lying,
mm,
right? That would be a very bad time. I think it could be
mm.
interesting if you have an adventure for whatever, one or a couple of sessions where it's like, okay, you can't screw them up because the not only will sort of magic green Santa Claus appear and give you all
Yeah.
alcoholism, but also, also the the snooty nobleman. He will read your mind. He'll say, "No, you didn't do it according to my wishes. No reward." Right? That's lame. But if it's
Yeah,
you
exactly.
still you get that. So you
Um,
go through the entire adventure not
yeah.
touching anything and running away. That's lame. But if you go through the adventure sort of, this, like, say, this water palace, this is clearly there for you to rob shit, right? So it's just that you have to figure out, okay, we can't actually kill anything.
And
There's a
it,
special condition
and
here.
it says so. Yeah. Yeah, it says if you take it subtly, no one will care, apart from the Green Man, who, and this is the problem with the Green Man, basically. That, but then you avoid the Green Man by not going to his house and not killing anything.
Right. Oh, but by the way, Mr.
So
Miller
you can get
asks,
away
so
with. So in that case,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, we'll answer that. So yeah, if we're talking about Lichway and Halls of Tisonthane, there are other adventures. You can look at the Best of White Dwarf. There are 3 volumes of the Best of White Dwarf, which contain both those, and I think Volume 1 contains both of them, and they
The answer
contain
is
a bunch of other stuff.
no. Similar style. No. This is a sort of an odd duck. These other adventures, they all had like a kind of like interesting British style to them. They also have other ideas or concepts, but I think UK1 is like singular in what it tries.
UK1 is an extreme version of what we're talking about. U1 and U2 are less extreme, particularly U1, which is an all-time great module, and Lichway and Halls of Tisonthane, which were White Dwarf adventures. So to exactly your point, I think there's a slightly different sensibility if you compare them to, I don't know, what's a good example of, to T1 Village of Thomas and the Remote House or something like that. B2, yeah. They do feel
B2.
different. There are things that feel different about Lichway and Halls of Tisonthane, but they're not as twisty. They don't have that kind of particular spin. Prince, have you read the Aurelian stuff in White Dwarf? Oh, yeah, Kelry did. I do actually have an answer from you. Answer in a minute, but he says Kelry did a Trillion source book that's linked in his blog if someone wants to play around in it. So Kelry's blog. Have you read the Aurelian stuff, Prince?
No.
Again, I have the articles. I have not, much like John. I have not read
some
them.
of it. It looked interesting, but I haven't gotten around to it yet, like so many other things.
So let's say if you play well, so we're talking about you're at high efficiency play. So we're talking here because this is an adventure game, a classic adventure game, so you need to be playing well. And this, to be fair, this adventure is pressing you to do that, but it's pressing you to do it by doing things differently to how you normally would. That's good or bad, depending on your point of view, but it is a skill challenge because you have to work out how to get through stuff without doing what you'd normally do. This is a big haul you get to keep if you never encounter the Green Man on the 1 in 6 chance when you kill something, or by going into his house and annoying him. If you're otherwise, if you don't kind of engage him in a way where he starts paying too much attention to you, then you get away with that. Short composite bow +1, 6 arrows +2, a dagger +2, a scroll, two wands, a wooden box with potions, and 2 rings of protection. It's a decent magic haul, actually. It's not bad at all.
Imagine getting the haul, right? And then, afterwards, like, I don't know, a deer pisses you off.
The Green Man arrives on the 1 in 6. And
no, sorry, adventurers, you'll have to bring all of it back. Like your players are gonna go like, what the fuck?
Kill the Green Man. Yeah.
You didn't play by the rules. And he's like breathing. You're getting intoxicated.
You're becoming an alcoholic due to it. Yes. There's a 1 in 10 chance or something of becoming an alcoholic.
God. I mean, can you finish?
You can also, I would say, you can try to get him drunk. By the way, you can try to get the Green Man drunk. Yeah.
I keep saying Green Man, and I'm thinking of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he had his Green Man suit.
Yeah. No. So if you hang out with him, you can recognize the books and scrolls about gardening and brewing. There's pipe weed, so there's a reference to Lord of the Rings there. And pipe smokers can have free choice from the wonderful selection. He won't tell the secrets, but he'll boast at length about the splendors and regale the listeners with long stories of his travels. And he will say, how do we solve the puzzle of the maze? This, by the way, this is the section where you hear about what happens when he gasses you, because this is what I'd forgotten, or I'd forgotten to kind of annotate earlier. But yeah, he will tell you to solve the maze. If you want to leave, he will tell you how. Go and solve the maze.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's like holy shit. It's like putting a Tom Bombadil on the encounter table. Okay, wait. So does this? Let's see. Unless somehow removed from the garden by the party, Green Man will be all right. Okay, so here.
So yeah, it's that in under A. If you annoy him, he'll gas you, and then he dumps you in the river to wake you up in the shallows of the river.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm really thinking, and they really should have put this at the beginning of the adventure. But
yeah,
so if
yeah.
you get the garden in a hostile state, and then you get Green Man, like does he do the same? Does he just dump you in the river, and or does he
No,
fuck all of you up?
I'd assume so. That seems to be his behaviour, you know. But yeah, certainly it only indicates about what happens if you meet him there, I guess.
In his house. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. But yeah, it makes sense that he'd do that even if you're being violent, I guess, because it's a non-violent garden. It is very Tom Bombadil in that way, isn't it? To be fair, I think that is almost certainly a an inspiration here, isn't it? And we are Tom Bombadil appreciators on this channel, so we'll hear no slander.
No slander about. Oh my god.
You can start as the Green Man if you like. I don't care about him.
Okay, wait. So what's the
there's-
point of
there's a-
this of being in the Green Man's house? What happens if the DM again? He puts on his beard. He puts on his funny voices. The players they roll their eyes. Like one of them says, "Enough of this shit," and like he wants to get up, but the other ones, he puts his hand on his shoulder. The other players like, "Shh, no, Barry. There's treasure at the end. Come on." Come on, it's been ages.
The worst thing is there's the Lyre of Building which you can't take, but then if you befriend him, he he will invite you into the other room.
Into another room.
and it's a room that doesn't have anything important in it.
What? If questioned closely by players about the plants in this room, the DM may find himself in some difficulty. Certain parts of the Dungeon Master Guide, Appendix J, may help. But if pressed, the DM might simply add to inform druids, etc., that while the plants in the room and any comments passed by the Green Man were quite fascinating to them, they gained no information of any practical use. Point.
Yeah.
End encounter. Hell yes.
Yeah. So it's a funny one that, again, it just doesn't kind of feel like, oh, okay. This I think is about the worst encounter in a way, but there's some good encounters and there's some interesting encounters that aren't executed particularly well. And then there's this, which is like, you just don't want to go to the Green Man's house is the main thing.
Oh wait! If specifically asked about how to leave the garden, he will direct the party to solve the secret.
That's the main advantage.
Yeah. Okay.
He will say to go and solve the maze.
Yeah,
so that's the one thing is he and the leprechauns are the people who help you.
Sort of, unless you make one mistake.
Yeah.
In which case you're trapped in this sort of extra dimensional time bubble with this homicidal alcoholic maniac gardener gone. Oh no! Okay,
no, the worst thing is he's not homicidal. He just wants to trap you.
Dumps you in the river.
There's a maze puzzle that there's stuff like you can't get exact distances on the mazes. The maze changes shape. There's a sundial that says it's noon. Basically, what you want to do, I actually think the puzzle, which is that there are 4 depressions on the sundial, which are each of a leaf. It is of a rose, an oak, a dog rose, an oak, a shamrock, and a mistletoe. And if you go and get those and put them on this, that's clever. I think basically you've got to scrap the maze because mazes are bad. You've got to just say because
the maze would make basically. Just having the sundial alone gives you. So the idea of the sundial is that there's 4. Can you like how long can the DM do the Green Man without just losing his fucking mind?
It's like one of those long form pranks where you're 2 hours into role playing the Green Man, and you're like, when are the players going to tell me to stop?
You no longer break it off. You are him now. You're locked.
It's like some sort of it's like a Robert W. Chambers short story or something.
Oh my
God. As an effect of the yellow sign or the Green Man, the green sign.
Exactly, you're channeling him for too long. Yes. So the idea here is, I agree that. So this part would work if there wasn't 4 piece of shit faces. So the idea is like, so you have a dial and then like 4 indentations, each of a particular, a leaf type, and then the DM kind of gets to, the players have to figure out, okay, shit, where can we find that? And then you're suddenly sort of pressed to wander around the garden. And you might actually have, again, wish this would have been taken into account, you might actually have a reason to talk to all of these fucking talking animals and piece of shit fairy creatures, that you're like, hey, by the way, where can we find oak leaves? And then they say, yes, and Shamrock is common
the
in the
Dryad's
leprechaun
woods and the
wood.
Blackbird's grove.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm running.
So yeah,
this.
this
is
yeah.
Sorry. So we have a druid in our party, and he almost never pays for training costs. And I've been sending him on. I've been allowing him to train at, in exchange for a favor against the order of the old man of the forest. But little does he know that I like the adventures that you get sent on. If you do that, they will become steadily worse. And I'm thinking this one will be. I'm putting this one in the lineup as well. This is pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, the green man from UK1 side. This is the bloke at the pub, Lynch.
Top of the morning to you, maybe the green man. Oh, come to me, come to me.
He's a guy who claims he adopts dogs, and he's got like 18 dogs in his farm.
Do you perhaps have a few $1 billion? I'm constructing a children's hospital.
Yeah.
I just need a wee bit of $1 billion gold pieces so I can finish the
Just a pot of gold. Just a pot of gold. Yeah.
A wee few billion to finish this poor hospital for the children.
I thought that was Irish American rather than Irish.
You can also do a favor for him, and then there's like a Protestant church that you have to bomb. Like this. He'll let you go. I'm sorry. I hope you weren't fucking running any advertising on this one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I blame the super.
Yeah, I blame the IRA. Yeah. John says, "Have any of you run it? Anyone in the comments run it? I've seeded it, though I've not run it as it's somewhere in my Greyhawk game, and the location has been mentioned.
It's
E. I assume I don't know. I kind of assume E hasn't because he sees it as the distilled tyranny of the 110 IQ, which is a good insult. The idea of what happens when someone is intelligent enough to be able to understand the concept of something, but not to actually execute it. Yeah,
I think it's more the it's more the idea of like, you have like basic bitch dungeon crawling, and then you have people that are, I guess, a little bit smarter, where they do want to go like, oh, I actually think that's unsophisticated. So in my adventure there will be no fighting whatsoever, like as opposed to like probably maybe a more nuanced approach, or even that where you just accept like, no, actually this is the point of the game, is to like fight, and you make that as exciting and deep as possible, or whatever.
Well, I think as you said, I would say as a one-off, this is fine though. I don't think that's necessarily a problem.
Yeah,
it's what I'd say. Read it. I mean, this is like the third time I've read it, I guess. And I think the thing I come away from this time that maybe I didn't so much previously, and it's because in this case I've got a very particular kind of mindset on it, is the things that what you need to do is go in and be like, what are the prevailing flaws here, and how are they fixed? How do you give players stuff they get to do and be good at and have fun with and succeed at? I don't mean that they can't succeed at the other stuff, but which doesn't involve them ending up getting green manned. And that's almost the main thing. Is I like the sundial puzzle. I think that's a successful idea. But yes, as the DM, you have to think.
The sundial puzzle, it kind of ties the entire adventure together, because like it actually explicitly states that you
need to go everywhere and talk to everyone, as you need to know where places are. Yeah,
exactly. And even the maids,
and I think that's great.
They all know how to solve it, but they'll never help you.
Yeah, indeed. You have to work with the creatures in the garden like the dryad. Well, the dryads want to charm you. You send your female members to talk to the dryads about where they can find different plants.
And I imagine the second one is, where the maze was built to guard entrance. The intelligent inhabitants all know of its purpose, how to negotiate, and how to use the sundial key correctly. They will not willingly impart any of this information to the party. I imagine that this is best played, right? Because there's no, there's no charming in this dungeon. I imagine, this information is best used by having them say, "Oh, I know where it is, but I'll never tell you." And then they all do that, right?
Yeah. I would say the limerick to this that you start with is pretty explicit. There are leaves in the garden to trace, and a maze with a clear central space. With a leaf in your hand, you could stand, but to leave the leaves in their place. That's pretty explicit.
Yes, you have to solve. This is like I think this is EOTB's kryptonite. It has multiple riddles. you can't fight anything, or the DM will like nanny you. He'll tell you how naughty you have been for not following his instructions. Yes, this is perfect.
I was going to say my green man in my campaign. It's not that it comes up is send down the Lord of Madness. That I don't know if I told this story on this show before. Have I told you, Princess? That they were in the mortuary Temple of Esma, and there was like a summon a Slard figurine, and I didn't really know what to do with this because I'd never run. This was like wasn't literally the highest level adventure I'd run, but it's up there at that point. I was like, okay, cool,
right?
It's good mid level adventure, and I just rolled like, okay, there's 7 Slard entries in the monster manual, so I rolled a d7, and I got like Sendam, and so Sendam turned up, and I was reading it. I was like, okay, so. And he wasn't, or they weren't super aggressive. They were just kind of freaky and weird. And eventually, Sendam went away when they asked it to, because Sendam was like, "What do you want me to do?" whilst attacking them. And eventually, they're like, "Please leave." And of course, Sendam did. And Sendam's come up several times. But we have a what's it called, trope or principle, which is that if you say the name of the Lord of Madness in the game, then there's a D100 chance of an encounter with them. Yeah. Because it's a gag. Now the Green Man is like that, but at the center of the entire adventure, and you have to deal with him.
Oh my god! So after you solve the riddle, right? You get teleported to.
You go to the Palace of Spires. Yeah.
Tell me about the Palace of Spires, Owen. I know.
You've only glanced to this because this was the bit you kind of didn't quite get.
I mean, the most important part of the Palace of Spires is the Spires part, of course.
It's the last room.
But this is not outdone by the Palace part, which is also crucial.
Yeah. By the way, fun bit of art here by Timothy Truman.
Timothy Truman. Okay. So what do you...
So basically this is just another little place with I will again, because I'm not sure if we have it in the PDF, there is a fairly simple map. It's a few levels, and essentially here this is where you're going to find the tombs of the original lovers, Kerwin and Porphyrio. You're going to find the current missing lovers, Juliana and Orlando, and there are some adventurers here who like help Hamish and Argus, who help guard everything. 5th level fighters, 3rd level magic.
Is it still the same? Does it change anything up, right? Or is it still, more second verse same as the first, right? You go in there. And
So despite its location, the palace is essentially still a part of the garden. So restrictions on fire and flying apply here also. I would say the Green Man won't leave the prime material to come here. Even in response to spells. So basically that is one thing, is you no longer can get Green Manned. That's the biggest difference. But you still can't you can use spider climb, but climbing is at minus 15%. You can't fly. So yeah, it's just I guess it's a very slight twist. And the only important thing there is you're not going to get Green Manned if you do certain things.
And here the idea is kind of like you would encounter these lovers. You kind of have to you have to deal with them, right?
Yeah.
And they have bodyguards.
Yes. There's Hamish and Argus, who I don't think. Hamish and Argus will just try to stop you doing bad stuff. They believe Juliana and Orlando to be Carwin and Porfirio, and they're trying to convince them that they are in fact the original lovers. And loud noises will be heard by the two men. Other less alarming noises will not attract them because they assume it's just Orlando and Juliana. So essentially, if you try to kidnap the lovers, then Hamish and Argus will come and fight you, basically. And yeah, in terms of other stuff, that you're not really allowed to carry weapons inside because some carrioted columns will attack you. There's 2 carrioted columns, which you can defeat. That AC 522 hit points, etc. Only hit by magical weapons. But yes, so that is the thing where that counts as damaging stuff, I guess. If you take weapons inside, if you go in unarmed, then you don't get attacked by them. And essentially, you then need to go and convince Orlando and Juliana. They feel like they've only been here 1 day, by the way, because they've been missing 2 years.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And yeah. I'll get the page up to. I know you've.
Is there anything to? So you have to convince them or something. Wait, they won't willingly leave, right?
Yeah. So what it says is that essentially this is why you need to get the wishes to heal them of the effects of stuff. Yeah. And if you are trying to convince them, they feel like they want to stay here. Essentially. Yeah.
Right.
There are works of art. If you take them, they count as a stone of weight, so you can't actually sell them.
Okay. And then there's a tomb, but you can't loot it.
But the point is that understand it. So the riddle: O stranger whom fate hath brought nigh, I'll get it up again to distinfuriate ye even more in the comments.
Yes.
Leave those within in peace to lie. If thou was deign grant our request, then fate will move at thy behest. This gift from the contented dead was swear to grant by heart and head.
Right.
This is a less good riddle. I think the maze riddle is actually quite simple. This is less simple and is going to be annoying, I think. But yeah,
how do you
here you need to get a wish.
refrain? Wait, how will you refrain
from opening the tomb?
Yes,
because there's carving, there's recumbent figures on the top. You must have these in Holland.
No, I see it now, but like I wonder like what the exact prompt is. So there's like you know the DM, you get there finally, you're like, oh, the tomb of the old lovers, and it says there's an inscription, there's a riddle, and it says not to do it, and then we go, okay, we won't do it. DM, right? Basically, the DM, he has like the DM is already standing there. He has a hoop in his one hand. The hoop is burning. He has a whip in his other hand, and he's dangling the hoop in front of you. And the players once again,
no, essentially, as the DM, you just repeatedly say,
right?
"We swear to grant by heart and head." Each time you say it, you get slightly closer to a player, so your spittle is hitting their face. We swear to grant by heart and head.
I think it's the whip and the flaming hoop. Come on, through the hoop. Come on, all of you, through my hoop.
So I think that's the thing, is that this your point about this being easy kryptonite, because not because of merely, but partly because of the riddles. It is the thing that basically a riddle or anything like that can work as something that feels satisfying to a player if either it's a specific challenge. So the Nightwolf Inn has specific things which you just might not solve, but if you want to kind of want to get the 4 wins bar, you have to do the clock puzzle, that kind of thing. Either a specific side quest that is just fun and the players who want to do it, or if it's anywhere near the core, it has to be fundamentally intuitive or simple. You know what I mean? Like something which basically the party is going to get.
I'm not even sure if I agree with that. I guess you can use, if like say there's 3 different ways to reach an objective, right? And one of them is like solve the riddle, and the other one is like if there's a few other ways to do it that maybe are more costly or more risky or something like that, that's fine too. I'm not against that. I'm more against the idea that it is true that like in normal D&D, and that's why I'm saying this is more like a gambit or a trick, right? In normal D&D, the DM, you just set up environment scenario, and then it's kind of up to the players how they're going to
Yeah, yeah.
tackle it. So you can maybe even bluff or sneak your way through, or fight your way through. Like it's kind of open ended. And here, I feel it's all the same answer. And the answer is just,
Mm,
are you, again, you have to jump through my hoop. The DM
mm.
says, you got to do it this way. And it's like you're almost
So there is
training
an
them
interesting
for
thing. Just
obedience.
looking at the palace, what I think is worth saying is the
Yeah.
palace, because it doesn't have the green man, does shift this a bit, because you're not meant to take weapons into the castle, into the palace, except you can, and you just kill the caryatid columns.
Right.
Albeit you've been advised not to give XP for that. But hey, if you're evil, you're allowed to have it. Two, there's this you need to get the teleport keys to use back on the sundial. How do you get them? Well, there's a few ways, but Hamish and Argus, if you fight them, they have both some magical stuff on themselves, but they also have an okay amount of treasure in the secret compartments. There's stuff where basically, as a high risk looting expedition, it actually gets easier in the castle. Like, you can get decent stuff if you're, while forfeiting the reward, you can get good stuff in that's worth way more. Like, as in if you sell all the treasure,
Oh,
for
yeah.
instance, straight away. So you can get way more. So to be fair, and this is funny because this is something which, when you read the design, it's clear you're meant to be able to find the secret compartment that Hamish and Argus have. This is P7, by the way. I know you're not as
No, no, no.
familiar with
I've
this
got my
section.
PDF in front of me. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
But yeah,
reading
so
along.
Hamish and Argus's stuff is decent, and of course, there's other decent stuff you can get. So yeah, I just think that's interesting that it's obviously set up that you are in this section, because there's no green man, in a much better position to loot it and just run. Now, yes, the governor has his ESP medallion, but yeah, that's kind of up to the players to decide what's worth it. Yeah, so I object to the final riddle, because it's not just hoop jumping in itself. I can, like, yeah, yes, it is, but it's not just. It's that it's non-intuitive. It's something which is going to be. I don't think it's obvious you're meant to put your hands on the heart and head of the statue to get.
I mean, giving everybody a wish at the end is maybe a pretty good bribe for being so lame, as to force them to, like, you gotta do what I'm saying. It's not just about fighting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So maybe
yeah,
a wish is a good bribe, and
yeah.
I don't know. Fuck. I see these permutations too, where you maybe try to return the dead lovers to life. You're probably going to use the wish to
Free
to
Juliana and
yeah,
Orlando. Yeah,
GTFO, right? And then you have a couple of guys have wishes left.
yeah. Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, so I was going to say you do get booted like 2 hours after entering the domed room, the tomb of Cohen and Porphyro. That's probably fine. That's just a way to get back out. You
Oh
can
yeah, that's
also
actually
do it.
charitable.
You can
Yeah.
also do it via the teleport keys with the sundial. So there are multiple ways out. To be clear, I'm
Okay,
not
you
as
can
bothered about
escape.
that. Yeah, it's not just like that's the only way out.
How do you get out? Suicide, motherfucker. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my god. No, but
yeah, there are
okay.
multiple ways out. So yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, I suppose if you get 6 wishes, then
Not
and one of
bad.
your party
6
has been
wishes.
under the fountain, then that's 6, one per. We're assuming 1 per PC in a 6 PC party. Say
Right. Yeah.
everyone can get a
Maybe
wish. Yeah.
everyone
So
can get one
what?
wish.
Yeah. So I'm kind of, in that case, you got 2 for the lovers, 1 for the member of the party who you've been dragging around, who drank from the fountain, and wants to stay here, and then you have maybe 1 to get rid of the any damage you've done, because that's something which is, the garden will do that, and that will scrub that clean. And then 2 for other stuff. Like, it's okay, it's decent, but
You
it's something
can
where
probably
you could come out with.
can you with one
Yeah.
wish collect all of the valuables in the garden? And probably
There's
not.
no reason why not. It doesn't really give
No,
it
that's
doesn't
against
strictly give
this.
limits on that.
And then the DM, he shakes his head. You have learned nothing. You are stripped of the remainder of your wishes. Yeah, that's because then you're displaying unseemly greed. But if you
Yeah.
actually your only wish is that the DM who wrote this great adventure that he receives his just reward, then the DM will smile favorably upon you. It's too much, man. The railroading, I think, is still a little bit much here. I agree it has pretty good ideas every once in a while. Like it's trying to do something different, but I don't know if this would be. Um, I, I think it. Sorry, I think it can be run in a way that's fun, but I think you would have to be careful. It could very easily become very lame.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think it's probably easy to be based on how we've approached it, and based on opinions of some people in the comments who know it. It's probably easy to be harsh on this than it actually
Yeah.
deserves. What I mean is, you can be like, "This is awful," and you're like, "No, it's not awful. It's actually really fun.
It's not
It's got loads of cool
awful.
ideas. It's got
Yes,
loads
no,
of fun ideas."
I don't want to be
Yeah,
like I didn't mean to be like too negative. But I do think that
yeah.
this
But
is like
it
very much
requires an expert DM, I think, to see what's actually going on,
just
like what you can
a
do.
brilliant genius DM.
What I
No,
mean
but
is,
yes,
what I'm saying, Prince and I could run this, but you peons who watch this podcast, you stand no chance.
I
Um,
I do think that there's it's very interesting.
yeah.
Uh, I can see, in theory, I can see it work, right? With the
Mm,
the sundial puzzle, kind of like giving you a reason not
mm,
to, um, giving you a reason to interact with all of these creatures, and maybe the DM running it in a way so it's not too brutal, and you can lightly skim some treasure off the top
mm.
without
Which seems to
getting
be
too boring.
intended. That's what I say. It
Yeah,
seems to be intended that you're meant to get some stuff out of it.
yeah, for
It
sure.
just is. What's weird is that it's never quite said exactly what's the boundary. It just said it seems to be implied you could get some stuff and no one really cares, but
Yeah,
how much stuff? Yeah.
giving everyone a wish is pretty good at the end. That's a
Yeah.
pretty good
Yeah.
impulse.
I think that's the thing is if you can get the treasure from the caves, a couple of the hoards without penalty in the garden, and the wishes for something which, and this is going to come to John's point here, and I think we should address this, for something which is not going to be a super long adventure, it will probably feel okay. That's a decent amount of treasure for the amount of stuff you've had to do. But if what you get is a bit of treasure from the caves and a couple of remaining wishes after using the rest to heal people and stuff, you're probably going to feel a bit like, okay, that was disappointing.
I think if you run 4-hour sessions like I do,
Yeah.
If you pace your party a little bit,
Mm.
2 to 3 sessions, I think.
Yeah, I would
Maybe
say 2 to 3 sessions. Yeah, it's not. I mean, say
maybe a bit longer.
I'd probably go at the shorter end for lots of parties. It kind of depends what they do, doesn't it? I think if you get parties who are hyper interactive with the different things, which in some ways is fun, it'll take longer. If you have a party who's just like, what is the speed here? What's the speed run to do this? It'll be shorter. And
On the
I
one
think
hand, yes, but
in a tournament, if you're willing to say 8 hours in a tournament, yeah, you could do that, and I think that could be a fun, different challenge.
I
I
think,
would
yeah,
say,
like as a change of pace, as a breath of fresh ass, yes,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But um, yeah, they're like just some of the more it would have been, I
mm,
think, it seems a little heavy-handed too with the um not just like the quest guy with the medallion of ESP. Um, there's pretty like the environmental effects to sort
mm-hmm.
of like to nudge the adventure into to get the effect you want. I would have liked it if it was a bit more freewheeling.
Yeah. No, I agree. John does suggest using it either Wizard's Manse or as a portal into Fairy, where it's kind of an optional side quest to go and solve the lovers and stuff. Those are both ways of opening up. It certainly feels a lot more pressured if you're like, you have to go in here to rescue these people, and then you get this reward. But if you mess around too much, you don't get the reward. I think that's something which immediately sets it on a bad trajectory for part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, well, at the same time, I think if the players are sort of clued in on what's
Mm,
going on in like a fair way,
mm,
it should be okay. right? And I guess that's this is very much a sort of like reading the intent of the
Yeah.
module and adjudicating accordingly.
Oh yeah, there's certainly stuff
In a
I feel like
generous way.
it's been under communicated. I say that generously. Points in this that do seem fairly clear have been, to us, we're reading and thinking this must be the case from what it's saying. It's the idea like, oh, if you've ransacked it, you won't get the reward, or if you've killed aggressive creatures, you will get the reward because he doesn't really care about that. Like, obviously, it's that there's middle grounds on a variety of these issues, but it just doesn't say what they are. So you kind of, as the DM, have to say it. And in that case, you need him to say, look, if there are inhabitants there, please don't rob them. But then if you find other stuff, then you're allowed to keep it, right?
You say, what? Robbery? Such a vulgarity has no place in my campaign.
Yeah.
Away with you. Yes.
Yeah. Send down the Lord of Madness appears to remove the player from the game by sending him a curt WhatsApp note.
The Green Man again. Blasts all of you with booze.
Vomits beer on them. Yeah. He does say UK1 powered by Stroop waffles, otherwise trash. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously
Owen very clearly loves it. I'm a little bit more skeptical now than I was before, but I think for me this would be
I'm probably more skeptical than I was. I'm more skeptical than I was 4 years ago, and that's partly from the hard experience of hundreds of sessions. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Yeah, like 400, 500, 600 sessions of D&D in between.
Oh my god! That's not bad.
You get enough hours down, and you start to be like, wait a second, I think there's a thing. It is those hours of mastery kind of thing that I think you can run quite a bit of D&D and not be bad at running it in terms of you can have a fun time with your players and not realize what's good and bad in a product, because that part of it is a secondary function, like a second order function. And so you're running stuff okay, but you're like, it is weird, this module doesn't seem to work. And you only learn that by reading enough and playing enough and running enough. And then you're like, oh, wait, this is the same thing this is the problem I had last time. You start to realize, oh, these monsters are too much like this. Like a friend was running in our open table game. We had a guest DM last night, actually. And so I was playing. I found a irritating specialist priesthood to punish him for all the times he finds annoying kits to make annoying characters with.
I just remember this character that Jeff A had made, which was some sort of horrific. It was a high-level Greyhawk kit monk combined unarmed combat proficiencies from multiple splat books. It was awful. It just made me sick. Yeah.
So I wasn't doing that, but yeah. And it was a thing that as he was going, he's running the module and he ran it very, very well. We had a good time, but he was like, occasionally it's like, wow, these bandits are really tough. And it's because it was like all these bandits were like first level fighters. And I was like, man bandit. I just said, man bandit is 1d6 HP. So that's probably more like what you're expecting this to be. But the module you're using just says they're 1d10. And that's fine. There's no blame attaching. But you're like, that's something that you pick up when you run enough that you're like, wait a second, that's really annoying.
It's just enough to tank just a critical amount of more hits. Yeah,
exactly. I think that's kind of what and it didn't pan out like that, but it's something where you could tell that you're like, whoever decides, because it was a Dungeon Magazine adventure, and you could just tell this thing. You're like, does the what is this person who's designed it, what do they think is going to happen in this adventure? Is that
I guess we should summarize.
Yeah, we should wind it up. But yeah, that is my summary, by the way, is at this point, 4 years later, re-reviewing this, I'm like, I really love a lot of the ideas here. I think there's a couple of the puzzles and a couple of the encounters are really fun. It needs some kind of delicate but serious tweaking to make it not bad.
I would say good, cool concept, good introduction, first of all. I'm both on like I guess on a usability front, I'm a little bit like miffed that like really the most important like sort of set
information.
The most important part is like you're talking to all of the inhabitants, and there's in the actual encounters not much attention paid to any of that. That's kind of a drawback. There's kind of like the heavy-handed sort of or what is it? It's not near. It is heavy-handed, yeah, or it's not quite contrived, but it is heavy-handed. Uh, the heavy-handed way, you're kind of like sort of forced not to. You have to be nice. You can't fight, all that stuff. It feels a little bit limited. I do think probably you could get away with. Or at least, and you have to really think about this. Look at your group. There's probably certain groups that this works relatively well for, and I'm
Yeah.
not even saying that these are necessarily like story gamers or the campaign from hell, Forest Oracle
Yeah.
up the Garden Path.
Yeah.
That's the final level.
It ends with Vecna lives naturally.
I was going to make that joke.
He says finishes with UK1. It finishes with Vecna lives.
You have to story game Vecna into a portal. Literally, the rules of the game are suspended. It's so good.
It's thing I've only partly read, but Die Vecna Die, like
it's good.
It's good. Yeah, what I've read, I'm like, that's interesting. In terms of doing some of the same stupid high level stuff. Yeah.
Or at least it's probably not. It's probably decent. I kind of want to check it out now. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's one thing, again, it's you read enough high-level modules and you then reread stuff and you know what's good and bad. Jeff does say Valse was a monk kit from Scarlet Brotherhood, so it's that version of the monk from 2nd edition.
That
with
was
the fighting monk cleric subtype.
The first incarnation of Boss Argul, yeah.
Yeah, who only had proficiencies. Yeah, that would be quite broken. I agree, Jeff. No, knowing those things, yeah, nobody would be left. The players would have...
the people who would be left for Vecna lives, that is like a fate worse than death. Okay.
Yeah. There'd be the people who would enjoy the Giovanni Chronicle, which is part of your mega dungeon.
Oh man, if only. No, but so anyway, to wrap it up, I'm actually surprised. I should check out the total amount of treasure. I'm a little bit it's probably under strength, to be honest. If I look at it, it's probably going to be a little bit undercooked, but more magic items than usual.
The problem is that it's highly magic item based, and it's not clear what you're allowed to keep. As it is, if you can take loads of the magic items, great. You're going to get more than 10,000 XP out of it. Really, what the reward is. But
probably,
it's not completely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You are. I mean, as in just looking at the number of stuff that's going to be worth 1,000 each or 2,000 each or whatever. But it's, I think it's that you're going to struggle to, if you're thinking that you each need, if you're each 5th level, you're like, no one's going to level off the treasure in the adventure. They're going to, you're going to get a couple of people making a nice clip out of it based on exactly what their tiers are. But I think, you're going to need to also buff the treasure. If you're expecting it to take 8 hours, say, in a campaign.
Can't you all use the wish to give yourself like a ton of XP? How much?
You can. I was going to say, presumably it does say you can't use the XP to make the temporary level for druids permanent. But I'm not sure why you'd have to, because what's the condition for wish? I'll just. Because wish you should be able to do that anyway, shouldn't you? You can give yourself.
I'm not sure if you can instantly give yourself a level, but you can probably get some nice reward out of it.
Yeah, I was going to say it'll be in the 1E DMG notes, won't it, for spells?
Maybe not even there.
Right. Yeah, no, indeed. I was going to say we do have. I recently read FRE1 Shadow Dome was actually. Yeah, the wild magic is the least of it. Yes. So. Yes, the Avatar trilogy. This is one thing. Anytime you look at this and go like, anytime EOTB tells you in a smoky room over some craft beer at a convention in Texas that this is the worst of the worst. This is where creativity and happiness go to die. Remind him of the Avatar trilogy, and then he'll have flashbacks to reading it in about 1989. He'll start crying. He'll apologize for claiming this was worse than the Avatar trilogy. There really are some very, very bad 2nd edition modules out there.
I keep thinking in my mind, EOTB lives in Appalachia, but he actually lives in Oregon, so he'd probably be in a Starbucks.
He's the opposite of the guy that you think. You think he's this kind of crazy Uncle Zeke type who's
a man in a plaid shirt in a cabin that he built. But no, it would be in Oregon. It would be in a Starbucks. Sure, your double frappuccino is ready.
Yeah, and then he turns over to you with his double frap and says, "UK1 is where story gaming began."
Let me tell you about UK1. Yeah,
UK1 is the tip of the spear. The mid-80s AD Indian modules led to the abomination of the Avatar. Yeah, the point is this is very early. It's a bit like how you pick up some of these habits in Ravenloft, which I think is better than this module. But Ravenloft has some stuff that isn't particularly healthy. So does DL1. DL1 is comfortably better than the other Dragonlance ones. Yeah, it is. No, but DL1 has a bunch of cool ideas, but you can see the degradation module by module, John says he also bought Under Ilafan and use that. Under Ilafan, though the maps are broken and you have to do a bunch of the key filling yourself, it is a good module and I've run it and my party enjoyed it. Great. We will let's finish there for tonight. I think we've given our views. And I think the comments have given their views as well.
Yeah, it was a little bit less PG than usual. And I think actually we stayed on topic more than usual.
Well, there was the bit where we spent 5 minutes talking about the expanded universe of Star Wars
into the expanded universe. Strange proclivities of Michael Stackpole.
Of the Fox ladies. Jeff says, I should say, by the way, Jeff, I agree. I think loads of stuff. I'm trying to think what it was. Who was it? There's a module. There's this Planescape mod, not Planescape. Which module is it? It's a Dark Sun module from the Dark Sun first edition, the first version of the campaign box, which has this weird it has the flip book module. It has this thing which seems very linear, and then you realize it's really easy to turn it into a sandbox, and you just can do that. And you think, oh yeah, there's way more here. And I think Dragonlance is like that. I'm not talking about the modules themselves, a lot of which are very bad. But DL1 is decent. But as a setting and for particular modules in there, you could definitely just be like, what happens if we ignore the main plot that you're being forced to do and you just let people go crazy? And yeah, that's an interesting game, I think. I agree. Yeah, cool.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in about a month, and we'll pick a topic for that. I don't know what our topic is, but we'll pick a topic.
We'll find something interesting. Thank you everyone for listening. Have a great evening and have a wonderful week.
Night.